What's checking, everybody? It's good to be back. It's House Divided on a Wednesday of championship week in college football. I'm Jeff Ketch, otherwise known as Eat a Bag of Dicks, Bo Corrigan. That is Chad Hastings. I just thought I would do and say the thing that everybody in the chat is thinking, Chad. I'm a man of the people. Gotcha. And as soon as I saw Bo Corrigan or Boo.
So,
come on, man. You're a grown-ass man. As soon as Boo Corrigan.
His friends call him Boo, so Reese Davis calls him Boo.
He's Boo. As soon as Boo started talking last night on the rankings announcements, I was like, you know what? I'm going to come back representing the people. Guys, it's good to be with you. Sorry I wasn't around yesterday, but I'm back today. We got a big old full Wednesday show. So come into the Specs chat. Chat it up. While you're watching the show at some point, hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Get notifications. Do all of those things. We got Brian Jones today instead of Thursday. It's a Maniac Wednesday, right? We're moving some pieces around because, you know, Brian's important and he's got a lot of things going on during championship week. So
different travel schedule, Catch. He's got to get to Atlanta for the big one. So things are happening the rest of the week. He was good enough to reach out and say, is tomorrow good? And I said, well, yeah, we'll do it.
I mean, you accommodate the people that will shout and scream in a CBS studio on the week of Thanksgiving anytime you need to accommodate their schedule. Jason Sukamel, 220. So we're going to be talking Brian Jones, college football. We'll have a lot of recruiting discussion at 220. You know, we're not that far away from signing day. One of my buy or sell questions is directed around that, but we'll talk some Kobe Black. We'll talk some, we'll talk about anybody that you guys want to talk about. You can put your questions into the Specs chat. Also send us your super chats. You know, that skips to the front of the line. Chad, we have an updated college football top 25.
Yes, we do.
And I feel like if there's a message to everybody watching the show, I mean, I hate to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
We kind of told you so.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the things that we kind of warned about on Monday, the things that were a little bit slightly concerning, they kind of popped up last night when we've been telling you that the committee just doesn't really – I don't want to say they don't like Texas because that's probably not fair. But they don't like them compared to some other teams. We've been trying to tell people that one of the things about Texas, as Texas fans have been talking about what has to happen this week in order for us to get into the playoffs, one of the things I feel like we've been trying to tell people is I don't know how much they like Texas compared to these other teams. And it was one thing last night that Oregon stayed in front of Texas. That was expected. Again, the committee keeps telling us what they think about this. They've done rankings now for 5 weeks. And every single time Oregon has been ahead of Texas, who, by the way, has been in front of Alabama. But we talked about it on Monday. Ohio State loses to Michigan. Where might they fall? Not because it's a big deal that Texas can't move ahead of Ohio State with a win this weekend over Oklahoma State. I mean, I think I have a strong suspicion that they would move ahead of Ohio State at that point. But there's almost something symbolic about what happened with the slotting of Ohio State in the rankings, the continued positioning of Texas in 7th. And it's that this committee, while they may like Texas, they're certainly not overwhelmed by anything that they've done this season, whether or not they beat Alabama in September or not.
Yeah, the thing that stood out to me, Texas fans were hoping that the AP wasn't an indicator. Certain times they'll hope that. So we saw in the AP that those voters decided, let's punish Ohio State, 3-4 slots, put them below Oregon, but put them above Texas. I said yesterday during the show, I would have probably kicked them all the way down to just on top of Alabama. I would have left Bama at 8 because I don't think they need to get, any love off of beating that Auburn team by a hair, 4th and 31. But we also mentioned that, like you said, okay, look, they could do the same thing. This committee could do the exact same thing with Ohio State. And a lot of the fans reacted with, nah, fellas, that's crazy. That's not going to happen. The committee won't do that. There's a lot of reminders here, Ketch. Let's get a few out there. Remember, we've been saying this. This poll, the good news for you if you're a Texas fan, last night really has nothing to do with what's coming this week. Tell yourself that continuously. When those guys last night were saying, well, Florida State's at 4, that means if they would TCU was 3 in a next to last poll, and they got kicked out. Don't tell me Florida State can't get kicked out. That's number one. Just keep it in mind. And then remember, Ketch, the one thing that the committee never has to do is put points up. No numbers other than 1 through 25. You know how in computer, if y'all pull up the AP, I'm going to pull it up right now. The AP poll, there's points over here. 1540, 1495, 1413. Texas, if you wonder, has 1,205 points. You know how many points Texas has in the CFP? None. Nothing, because there are no points. They don't have to report. And Ketch, to your label today, even though it's frustrating, Texas fans, I get it. I was in awe of Boo Corrigan's ability not to answer the question he was asked last night. It's like there's an agreement between ESPN, Reese Davis, and Boo. Dude, I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You are not going to answer any of the 5, and we're just going to.
Well, what was funny about that is I told you on Monday the questions that I wanted them to ask, and you were like, well, you can ask anything that you want.
Right.
But he's not going to answer anything. And to their credit, they asked some of the questions last night, and Boo was like, it was like the scene from Tommy Boy. Was that a Niner in there? What?
Exactly. And I even thought a couple times he would do Reese, we're just going to have to watch it play out. He didn't even do that. He just went to a whole nother area of he went into these weird Mac Brown style answers where he started mentioning in a rival game, Florida State and beating Florida like they did, and he just rambles on and then stops, and then Reese goes to the
next completion percentage. Just so here's the thing. And it's not right. And yet what I'm about to tell you is something that you need to understand. I can remember, it's happened a few times in my life, before I got married, and then these things don't happen anymore. But there have been times in my life where I either met a girl or I'd gone out with a girl before, but she chooses somebody else, right? I can remember once when I was 18, I was dating a girl. She ends up deciding she wanted to date one of my friends. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm going places. This guy's a loser. Dang. You start rolling it off, right? You're like, wait a minute. I'm smart. I'm considerate. This guy over here is a fucking animal. You start making the list. You're like, this guy's going to cheat on you. You just start coming up with all of the antis for the other guy. But the only thing that matters is that she doesn't like you as much as she likes this other guy.
Yeah, you can't fight that.
And you can come up with I make more money and I'll treat you better and we'll go on vacations and we have common interests. You can do all of that you want to. I make great love. This guy's awful in the bed, so I hear. You can just say whatever you want to. She doesn't have to pick the way you want her to pick. Resume doesn't matter. And we're in a world in the college football scene right now, and maybe it looks a little bit different when this thing expands to 12, because I don't think we'll care as much about the way they slot 1 through 7, 1 through 8. The real story will be about, because I think the NCAA basketball tournament tells us this, right? I don't really worry about You worry about the number 1 seeds, and then it's like, well, who got in and who didn't get in? And I think that will happen next year. So you won't see a whole lot of Texas is 7, but they should be 6. And how do they get to this? Next year, it'll be about number 11 and number 12 and 13 and 14. Texas fans have to realize, as I was just saying, your resume doesn't matter. You're trying to reason and to intellectualize this process. It's a losing effort. And the committee keeps telling you that every week. But as we get towards the end, I think Texas fans on some level need to understand the committee's not going to change who they are or how they want to do this. I've seen people today who are like, let's email Boo complaints. Knock yourself out. It's not going to make a difference. And all Texas can do, I think now, is what we've been saying. Root for Georgia. You need Louisville to beat Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
Beat the crap out of Oklahoma State. And then, see where the chips lie. But as it stands right now, the committee is strongly telling Texas, we just don't think you belong at the very top right now. And they said that so much that as things currently stand, they're the 3rd number 1 team instead of the 2nd or the 1st number 1 team. And, I think it just points to on Saturday, you really know what needs to happen. Stop worrying about Oregon, because that's the other thing. A Pac-12 team is getting in. So stop worrying about where Oregon and Texas and their combined resumes. If Oregon wins on Saturday and they beat Washington, they're going to have the resume. They're going to have the big win. They're going to have what they need to justify them being in. I think this has to be about the pathway for Texas that makes sense, and stop arguing about the things that at this point aren't going to change.
We got some super chats already coming in. Ketch, you want to grab them?
By all means. Here? Absolutely.
All right, we appreciate those super chats. Now let's start with an update from yesterday. Ethos did end up at Hayes City Store. Says it was effing fantastic, and my girl loved the frozen marg. Will definitely be back. Ethos, thank you for that $4.99 super chat. Yeah, you can do a frozen marg.
What'd you get? You don't have to super chat it back.
Yeah, let us know what you went with, Ethos. I recommended the pork chop to him, but we listed a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I want to know what they had on the menu.
Ethos, tell us what you had. We will work that in as well. This is a $2 super chat. $2. Joel Klatt thinks UT win and in. Ryan, I'm not sure how that math would pop up in his head, because there's just, a win and in. I don't think it's that simple.
Yeah, it's not. Look, Joe Klatt is an honorary Longhorn, and not because Drew Kelson once took his head off in a Big 12 championship game. That was targeting, right?
Maybe. I'd have to go see it again to see exactly where the contact point was, Ketch. I'd have to double check.
It's funny because almost 20 years later, if that happens in a game, we would vilify and Drew Kelson for that. But in 2005, and we can still celebrate it. It's funny. That was an NFL Films play 20 years ago, and now it's like, oh, he took a few years off of Joe Klatt's life. Maybe he should sit out the second half. Joe Klatt loves Texas, and I'm fully on board with anybody that thinks Texas should be in. I just don't know that I personally, Chad, I don't want to speak for you. I don't want to do 3 hours of arguing about something that's not going to happen. What should happen is very subjective. We all have our various opinions of who should be ranked in what order. What matters is what the committee thinks. They're the ones, not me, not Chad, not Joel Klatt. They're the ones that make the decision on these things. And they are telling us things. They are telling us they love Georgia. And I'm going to say it again. Georgia's in. I fully believe that. And if you believe that Georgia is in, then you might want to just go ahead and root for them this weekend. It makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that this thing getting cluttery, Chad, I don't know that plays in favor of a team that the committee at this moment thinks is the third. They think Georgia's the best team with 0 losses.
Yeah.
They think Texas is the third best team with 1 loss. I don't know how you can reasonably think that one weekend's of results would cause that to happen.
Especially when you got Bama playing one of those teams up top, Oregon's playing one of those teams up top, but Texas is playing a team below. They're playing a team below them in the rankings, and that's going to be – and Florida State's doing that too, but they're doing it as an undefeated. Speaking to what you just hit, somebody chatted in. Mark, thank you. Georgia and Washington win. Florida State loses seems to be the best path.
Mark, I agree. I just don't think that Washington and Oregon matter.
Yeah, I think he's saying, well, certainly the Washington part might not, because I agree with you, Ketch. Somebody Pac-12's getting in, but like you just said, it's cleaner if Georgia wins.
Yes.
It's a cleaner discussion overall because Bama will just be done at that point. And now, Ketch, the question is, do you agree with this idea on a chat? Screw the eye test. Bama and Georgia should rest their starter. Thank you, Paxton, for that laugh. We needed that one today because there's going to be a lot of weird conversations. Let's get another super chat. $4.99 from Paul. If FSU wins, only chance Texas has as if Michigan loses.
Maybe. And, it's a game of football, so anything can happen. I mean, with all these games, Oklahoma State can beat Texas.
And remember those games are at the same time, ACC and Big Ten. All that'll be going on late at the same time.
I would say this about Michigan and Iowa. Ignore it until the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. And if it's a little bit like Texas and Wyoming, Chad, because Iowa will have the exact same game plan.
You're right.
They just 7 minutes to go. If they can be within 7 or 8, that's all they're trying to do. They want that to be a 5-minute game instead of a 60-minute game. So don't do this. If it's 0-0 at halftime, don't get over, because didn't we do this last weekend? It's like, oh man, Florida's beating Florida State, and it looked like this gonna be a crazy weekend. It's gonna work out well for Texas. Hell, there was a moment on Saturday where Oklahoma was like, oh yeah, Texas, watch out, we're getting our rematch.
Yep.
And
Red River 2.
By the end of the day, it was like, wait a minute, nothing happened again. So on Saturday, if it's 0-0, or if Iowa's leading 5-2 or 5-3, if it's like a normal Saturday in the Big Ten.
5-2. God, that'd be great. If they go to the fourth quarter at 5-2, that'll be like the best Saturday present we could have gotten.
It's about all you can ask for in the Big Ten. Yeah. Wait until there's like 10 minutes to go before you start doing that thing where you're like, Michigan might lose. They might, but I would say don't invest a single piece of your soul into that game until it's late enough to justify it. ACC, that one matters from the beginning because we know how important that is.
Yes.
We do.
Yeah. And maybe the good news for a Texas fan, even though it's not going to be pretty, what you're rooting for is not pretty when you get to the evening, but you are rooting for 2 pretty badass defenses. Like people have talked about, whatever you want to say about Iowa's offense, their defense will come to play. And Louisville has a physical, nasty defense that's going to test that backup quarterback for Florida State. So
I don't think people realize what the Louisville-Florida State game is, Chad, because how many people have gone out of their way to watch Louisville once this season?
Yeah, I mean, I have once, but it was like half a game. Maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the idea that most people have of Louisville is fast offense, score points, and really this is more of a blood and guts.
Oh, yeah.
Physical, punch you in the mouth Louisville team more than – now, they can get into some high-scoring games. I mean, it is college football, but it could be difficult for Florida State on Saturday to score points. I think Florida State and Louisville is just going to turn into a fist fight. I think Florida State probably wins the fist fight because I think they got better players. Mm-hmm. But this may be a game that's not about the quarterbacks at all. It's about the linemen on both sides of the ball. It's about running backs and linebackers. I think it's going to be about almost like the other 42 players on the field, not including the quarterbacks, who are, I think, play in and play out, just punching each other in the mouth. I think Florida State may win that, but I think that's the kind of game that the winner might not break 20. It may be a low-scoring game. And then you wonder at the end of it, how much credit will Florida State get if it's a 17-15 kind of a game?
Yeah.
Will the committee look at that and go, that was an impressive Florida State win against a really good Louisville team? It would have really helped them if Louisville hadn't lost last weekend. But that's kind of the reason why I think Florida State wins this game, because Louisville is still the kind of team they can just get beat up by Kentucky.
Well, and maybe this is a Longhorn fan super chatting this in, but it's an interesting one, Ketch, and it's a discussion. I think a lot of people are going to agree with the other side of this. Dirkley says, $5, I don't think Florida State is going to get in, win or lose. So there was a bit of a discussion, I think, on this last night. Let me paint a picture for you here, because what this has a chance to be is the opposite of when Ohio State beat up Wisconsin. Everybody remember that in 2014. That happened in an evening game. That happened late in the run when we'd see, and also you got TCU and Baylor not playing. Ketch, I threw out the idea yesterday on the show about the fact that the Big 12 plays Saturday morning, the fact that they have WWE connections to this game. It's going to be a show on some level, combo logos. The Undertaker might be there to hand out the MVP, whatever. Texas needs to put on as good of a show as they can.
CM Punk might be there. We haven't even talked about that yet this week.
Right. I referenced that yesterday and made the point about the social media context and how big a deal that was to talk about how many eyeballs are going to be on Jerry World. If Texas puts a show together and leaves an impression, then whatever happens in Atlanta happens. But then think about it. If those two evening games turn into the Iowa defense and the Louisville defense just showing up and coming into my favorite word, clunky, if it turns into a clunky Saturday night, could we get to the finish line and the committee looks back and goes, well, damn, craziest thing I saw today was what Texas did to Oklahoma State. And deep down, they'll be thinking, plus the Undertaker handed the dude that belt. Brett Yormark got busted through a table. Man, that was exciting. That is the Hail Mary for Texas for me, Ketch. It's that even if Florida State wins, put together such a crazy show on Saturday morning, you might turn the committee by the time you get to Sunday.
Okay, so I acknowledge all of that's not out of the realm of possibilities. I think the committee, if that was really on the table, the thing is, Florida State's not even playing Iowa. Well, I guess they kind of are. They're playing both. Texas and Florida State are essentially playing like the same kind of team.
Right.
They're playing one of these.
14. Louisville's top 15 team.
But they were top 10. It felt like that was going to be not even like a real top 10, but there would have been numbers. I always talk about, I'll go back to the UFC. You want to make me care about a fight. Slap some numbers on guys, and then I don't even have to know who the guy is. If it's like, oh, that's number 7, cool. I know what the stakes are. Mm-hmm. I think that the committee, here's what the committee could have done to better set the table for that kind of thing. They could have moved Oregon ahead of Florida State this weekend. The reality is, we all think, at least I shouldn't say that. We, all of us, there are some people that aren't convinced that a Pac-12 team is getting in. Chad and I think, are convinced that the Pac-12 winner is going to be in the playoff. Mm-hmm. I think most people understand that at this point, that's a winner-take-all game. Because of that, the committee could have put Oregon in front of Florida State this weekend, and it wouldn't have really mattered. It's not like Florida State would be necessarily out all of a sudden, but it would be the committee saying, when we say we're ranking what we believe to be the 4 best teams, like that's our goal. We're trying to find the 4 best teams. So when they rank Florida State at 4, allegedly what they're telling us is that in real time, as of right this very second, they think Florida State is one of the top 4 teams in the country. I think if they really wanted to let everybody know that Florida State is vulnerable in any capacity, they could have moved Oregon in front of them this week. And it wouldn't have meant anything in terms of it won't matter in a few days because one of those 2 Northwest teams are going to lose. But it would have told us symbolically, okay, Florida State, even undefeated, but now behind a 1-loss team, they're vulnerable to this because the whole argument that Florida State doesn't belong is that their starting quarterback is out. Right. But so far, the committee is telling us that hasn't bothered them, not enough to move Florida State back. If that was on the table at all, I think this week you could have gone 4 Oregon, 5 Florida State, 6 Ohio State, and then set the table for, you know what, it is kind of possible for Texas and Alabama to jump Florida State no matter what happens on Saturday.
Right. But remember, you're getting yourself trapped into the logic that this ranking means anything for next week. I'll still say it does not.
I think it does. I think all season long, they've been telling us the same things. I think when they go to Sunday, I think if Georgia loses, this committee's telling us they think freaking Georgia's awesome. And I've been telling you since Monday, I think Georgia's in. And if you think that Georgia automatically slips to 5 because they lose on Saturday, I'm not so sure.
Right.
I think they're telling us the reason why this week's poll matters and why you can't say the only one that matters is this next weekend's, because the way they've been doing it, that's why we think a Pac-12 team is in. We think a Pac-12 team is in based on how they've been aligning the rankings for 5 weeks. And for 5 weeks, they've been telling us they like Texas, but only so far. Only so far.
Yes. And to this point, they value the fact that Texas beat Alabama.
A little bit. I mean, if Texas had never played Alabama, they'd be 8th instead of 7th. That Alabama game, in retrospect, is the least valuable badass win over Alabama that any team has ever had in the history of college football. Because if they'd played New Mexico State instead of Alabama this year, and they were still 11-1 going into Saturday, and all of the other teams, let's say Alabama still had 1 loss, but it wasn't to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Texas would be 8th. I think Alabama would be maybe 5th. But as it relates to Texas, that Alabama game has not allowed them to move ahead of Oregon, which Texas has a better resume. They may not on Saturday, because suddenly if Oregon beats Washington, quite frankly, a win over Washington is at least as valuable, I think, in the eyes of the committee, based on where they've got Washington ranked right now, than what Alabama will be. It hasn't provided Texas anything other than boxing out Alabama. That's the only thing that win has done. It hasn't given them anything. If you take that away, there'd still be 8 teams, and the difference is Texas would probably be ranked 8th instead of 7th. If it's a different loss and they never play that, then Alabama's not boxed out. And then I think we'd go into the weekend with either Georgia at 5 taking on Washington at 3, or they would be 6 and Alabama would be 5, playing Georgia at 1, at which point the dynamics change. The win over Alabama hurts Alabama more than I think it's helped Texas so far, because if it was helping Texas, they'd be ahead of Ohio State, or they'd be ahead of an Oregon, because the committee would be telling us, boy, that's one of the best victories of the season, and these teams don't have that. So it has to be valuable, and this is why we're doing it. Texas has that win, and the committee's like, yeah, we're not really impressed.
If you have thoughts on the CFP and what happened last night and everything that's coming this week, let us know. We're climbing up towards 400 people in the Specs chat. We have a busy show today. Like Ketch mentioned earlier, Brian Jones at 120, Jason Sukamel, 220. We're going to dig into some Oklahoma State stuff in the crap bag today at 2. I looked up some interesting Ollie Gordon numbers, kind of surprising. We'll get into some of that. We've also got we've got to clean up some stuff from yesterday. Since Ketch couldn't be on the show yesterday, that means he's still got some thoughts on some big stories in college football. And at 12:40 every day, when it is important, and it feels like it's going to be important for a while, we're going to hit the portal. We will give you the portal update coming up.
We got to get a snazzy name for it.
At 12:40, yes, the portal. We'll call it the old in and out. No, we can't call
Portalgasm.
Well, that maybe. I don't know. Something about a portal.
Sandman, you've done it with sheep for like 3 months.
There you go.
Give us, make something out of the portal that we can call our portal segments.
Because every big story gets a gate, but portal gate doesn't sound right. That sounds like somebody did something illegal in the portal. Can't be that. So just let us know. Is there some way portal hub? There you go. Portal hub. Thank you, Sandman. We appreciate it. So before we get Ketch's thoughts on a couple things that we didn't hear yesterday, that's it. There it is. I think Bevo guy got it. I like Portal Combat.
I think that's what we called the thread last year, on Orange Bloods. That is what we did. Every time I had a portal story last year, I called it Portal Combat. Maybe that's what we should do. We should just stick with it.
Portal Combat, Portal Enemies, Portal Combat's good. Okay, we'll go with that for now. 12:40 every day.
Portal Combat.
We will do that. Ketch, before I get your thoughts on what happened in College Station this week, we got one more super chat. 199 from He's Going for the Corner. Thoughts on USC PK interest? I don't think he'd go. Is there serious discussion out there that USC might want Kwiatkowski?
I don't think he would go if there's a decision to be made and it's football related. I don't think Pete Kwiatkowski will go anywhere. If the guy wants to go back to the West Coast, that's just kind of where he's more comfortable, and decides he'd rather live in LA than Austin, then I don't know if there's anything you can do about it. So I can understand USC having an interest. I think there's a lot of ways for Texas to fend off that interest. And let's be honest, Lincoln Riley is a little bit on the hot seat. There's no guarantee that you go to USC for a year or two and you come out of that unscathed. So I think that'd be a dangerous lateral move for Pete Kwiatkowski. But again, if that dude's like, you know what, I've lived in Austin now for a few years, I prefer to be somewhere else. You can only do what you can do. But my thoughts on USC's interest, it makes sense. I think we'll have to see when the season's over where things stand. But, college coaching staffs, they're chapters. I mean, even the great ones lose, Tim Brewster, it's funny. Remember, he leaves Colorado a couple of days ago, and he's been everywhere. I can't even believe he was at A&M as long as he was.
I know.
But once upon a time, that guy was on he was one of the first guys to leave the initial Mac Brown coaching staff. And when it happened, because he had recruited Vince Young, it felt like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What does Mac do without Tim Brewster? And in the end, it was like, oh, he'll go on to win some championships and play for some. And I think that this would probably be the same thing. I mean, if Pete Kwiatkowski leaves, you would assume that Steve Sarkisian would hire a badass coordinator and go from there. I don't think it's what you want to happen, but I wouldn't worry about it.
Real quick, too, the easiest chat I've ever answered while doing this show. Sam, how does the NFL sort out their playoffs? Sam, they use football. All right. It is house divided on a Wednesday. No pageant needed.
It's clearly outlined. Whether you like how they do it or not, like, you know. Hey, Chad, Cowboys and the Eagles tie at the end of the season off the top of your head. How do they determine who gets the division championship?
What happened in the head-to-head? If not, what happened in the division?
I mean,
if not, they've got something for that. They've got it all figured out. It's all numbers and crunching and all the stuff. Like,
you can think it's cockamamie, but know before the event ever begins, you know what the rules are going to be at the end of it, which is not what we have in college football.
It is so beautiful. I care so little about NFL power polls. I can't even tell you how happy I get when I see everybody else flip out about an NFL power poll. And I'm like, well, I know what happens at the end. I don't have to worry about that. But in college football, you have to sweat power polls because that's how we figure it out. So we will definitely be talking about all that today as Texas is still stuck at 7 in the CFP. All right, Ketch, if we're going to do portal at 12:40, would you like to talk about Mike Elko until it's 12:40? What do you want to do?
Yeah, look, if nothing else, like 5 minutes.
Okay, you can go. You talk on Mike Elko till it's 12:40.
No, you talk until it's 12. I want to know, are you happy early on? Let's just have a quick 5-minute discussion about this.
All right.
A few days of the Elko era have begun. Forget about the press conference where the Aggies are doing a swing. Forget about whatever that was.
Okay.
In general, are you happy? I don't know that we know what the offensive coordinator thing's going to look like yet. He's still putting the staff together. Wide receivers coach Damian Craig, it looks like he's leaving. Bobby Petrino's at Arkansas. You tell me, like, how happy are you?
In terms of the press conference stuff, I thought there was a lot of good substance there. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Outside of some of the presentation of it, I liked the way Elko delivered what he delivered. And you can tell they're trying to move away from whatever flash and ego and stuff was going on with Jimbo. So I like the basics of it. I'd give that presser like a good, I don't know, B+ kind of a grade. I don't know if it was an absolute A, but he didn't embarrass himself. He looks like a ball coach. He looks like he's ready to go coach and get in the film room and all that stuff. So I dug it from the base standpoint.
It's going to be less fun with the Aggies moving forward. I think we've learned that in like 2 or 3 days, that Jimbo had a little bit of the carnival act in him, which always made it was like, hey, Jimbo's going to talk at SEC Media Day. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
Let's see what crazy shit Jimbo says today, right? Let's have some fun with it. I don't think we're getting any of that with Mike Elko. I think he's going to be exactly what we thought he was when he was hired, which is he's a rock-solid, good football coach. And for a team that's got a lot – one of the things we don't necessarily have to ask with him is, like, at least I don't think, is going to be, well, can he recruit at a high level? Well, the roster's stacked. So, like, he doesn't have to build something other than culture early on. He hires good assistants. A&M's going to pay the money. They're going to recruit well. So, I think it just comes down to, can he be dynamic? Can he develop talent? Is his offense going to be good enough? I haven't seen anything in the last couple of days that's kind of changed my big picture thoughts. I think he's solid. Is that good enough in the SEC? I have my opinion, but I can understand why an Aggie would think this is what we need. And look, clearly that press conference was for Aggies. And I get it. I think that's the one thing where it's like, Texas fans, get a hold of yourself a little bit. This is a group of people that have felt disenfranchised for months. And so the press conference was like, let's end being disenfranchised. And whether we like it or not, the Aggies show off their They're franchisement. They're no longer disenfranchised. They're just franchised. And they showed off their franchise with some swaying, and they saw varsity's horns off. Whatever it is those people do, they did. Like, when I saw that video, it just made me chuckle, but like it wasn't anything more than look at the Aggies. And in general, like I will this will take some time to figure out. And I don't even think from a building the staff standpoint yet we can pass any true judgments. Yeah. The OC hire is pretty critical, to say the least.
No doubt. Because and Blake and I were talking about it yesterday. I think the OC hire is needs to give them some cool factor. Elko's going to give them the substance. Elko's going to give them the X's and O's, the discipline, the stuff where Jimbo was crazy. He's not going to be as crazy, but they need a cool OC hire. They need an OC that's going to run an offense that's going to get recruits' attention.
Here's the thing. And it may take A&M some winning to kind of break this down. But if A&M's in a recruitment and it's Texas, Alabama, Georgia, let's throw Oklahoma in there, that those are the final five, right? That's a fairly reasonable top five for a top 10 prospect in the state of Texas. If I told you the final five was Aggies, Longhorns, Sooners, Tide, and Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The problem with that is when it's decision-making time and Nick Saban, Steve Sarkisian, Kirby Smart, and I'll give Brent Venables some love. Like, that dude can recruit now. When he goes into a recruit's living room, he's not to be underestimated. I think he proved that in the recruiting that they've done since they've been there. When Elko goes into a living room, how's he winning a battle against those head coaches? If you're choosing your football future, the thing that and you mentioned it, the thing that Sarkisian kind of has that allows him to compete with with Saban and Smart at this point, he's kind of cool. Like there's a cool vibe to Sarkisian that I think, you fake it until you make it. And he started to make it this season, but up until that, he's kind of gotten by on, he's a guy that kids like to be around. He's charismatic. Venables has got some of that, right? I mean, he's charismatic. I don't know that about Elko. Like, I know Elko can coach some football, and I know he did a good job at Duke, but I've never seen him be charismatic and like turn it on and go, where you go, oh, I want to go play for him for 4 or 5 years. And I'll just watch with a curious eye how some of these early recruiting battles go and who they hire. And you mentioned the OC's got to be a little bit of the sizzle. I mean, yeah, certainly on the offensive side of the ball, but in general, as the face of the program, I'm curious to see. We know he's not going to sizzle all the time, but can Elko sizzle some of the time? We'll see.
Yep. All right. So 430 in the Specs chat. If you want to jump in, we love those super chats. We had some of those earlier. Like we mentioned, every day around 1240, we're going to get into some portal stuff because that transfer portal is about to open up. Before we do that, Ketch, why don't you tell the people about Mojo Insurance as we head towards the end of the year? It might be something they're thinking about because insurance can get crazy.
Well, of course. I mean, it's Christmas season. Honestly, you just want to save money any way that you can at this point. I was thinking about it even myself today. I was like, oh, God, we got to get a Christmas tree. And then the kids expect presents. I guess that's going to cost money. One of the things that you can do to potentially, like, it's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that you use Mojo Insurance and they come back to you and say, you can save $7,000. It doesn't exactly work that way. But you could save some money. You could save a lot of money. It just kind of depends on your own situation. It's real simple. You just go to mojoinsurance.agency or scan that QR code right now. And you fill out a little form. It takes like 30 seconds. Doesn't take very long. And then they'll find out for you. They will find out for you by shopping through their more than 50 A-rated carriers, whether or not you can save some money on your insurance. And if you can, Christmas becomes a little bit easier, potentially. You can buy that G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip for little Sammy and not even sweat it. And then don't allow yourself at the end of Christmas to go, oh, I got no money. I wish I had found out. Because if I could have saved $100, maybe there's $100 in my hand right now. Don't wait. Do it today. Mojo Insurance. Chad, Blake, what we've got to come up with, you know how Anwar has the Speakeasy Lounge? Oh, he's already done it. Okay. So look, yes.
Portal Combat.
We need a sounder. And I don't know if it's just some like spooky music. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Finish him.
But it's got to have some of that.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, there maybe needs to be like a finish him whenever a guy commits in the portal. Finish him. I don't know.
NIL. Finish him.
Fatality. Yeah, it needs to. We have time. Technically, the portal's not even open. But every time for the rest of like the next few weeks, we need some of that. All right. So, Chad, I have some notes for you.
All right.
And let's just start with this. I think it was really interesting that Matt Rule today was doing a press conference or was giving an interview somewhere, because I've seen the quote, but I haven't seen like the live video of it. But Matt Rule said today to the media, a good quarterback, for those that don't know, Matt Rule is at Nebraska now. He's bounced around a little bit, but now he's with the Huskers. A good quarterback in the portal costs $1 million, 1.5, $2 million. I think he was trying to say somewhere between $1 and $2 million in NIL. Fascinating. That's all. It's all. Do you have anything for that, Chad? Like maybe to some people, duh, right? But to other people, to hear the Nebraska coach say that, because he's not in the SEC, I don't know. Like something about that made me go, okay. The conversation of the portal and NIL and what college football is getting more mainstream when he can just have an open conversation. Think about how far we've come.
Right.
It was not even 12 months ago where Fisher was like, how dare you suggest that a single player has ever come to Texas A&M for money? How dare you? Now we've got the Nebraska coach saying out loud, we need like $2 million to get Will Howard.
Right. Because he is in the portal, kids, if you haven't heard that name.
Yeah,
Will
and I'm
Howard.
going to read out some names, but I think
that
to me is just interesting to hear a coach say it.
It tells me officially Nebraska is not big time anymore. If you thought they were, big time coaches do not say what he said. There's no way. He says that with an air of desperation. Nick Saban doesn't say that. Kirby Smart doesn't say that. If you say that around those two guys, they'd be like, what's your question? What are you talking about?
Well, but you know what? I disagree with you. First of all, look, Nebraska's not big time football anymore. So you're right about that. I think that thing serves two purposes. Nebraska does have money. So I think that was the old Nick Saban call to arms.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, no, he's sounding a bit of an alarm there. And hell, Saban did it too. Yeah, like you said, Saban did it a year ago. But there's a lot of, this thing has progressed really. Saban started it with the Bryce Young thing.
Yes.
That was one of the very first comments we heard when
Bingo.
Bryce Young, 800, what did he say? 800,000, just shy of $1 million, whatever that number was. And now they're talking about it this readily. That's crazy.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that. There are some interesting names that we'll mention in the rest of Mortal Kombat today. Let's start with the quarterbacks. You mentioned it. And this is also, I think, relevant to Texas because let's just start here. There have been Ohio State rumblings with Malik Murphy's name.
Mm.
It doesn't make sense to me. But it's out there. And I think Malik Murphy's going to have to be a name that we watch when the portal opens for obvious reasons, right? I mean, we don't have to completely relitigate that there's an expectation that Quinn Ewers is going to stay. If he doesn't, I think it changes the Malik Murphy conversation quite a bit. But assuming he comes back, there's some thought that Malik Murphy, because Arch isn't going anywhere. Don't send $3 in the super chat and ask about Arch. He's cool. He's going to be back. There is speculation on Malik Murphy. I would be shocked if he had that high of a level of an opportunity like Ohio State. Would shock me because I don't think Malik Murphy's ready to start for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Malik Murphy and you're transferring, aren't you transferring to a place that's telling you you're going to be our guy?
I would assume. And what does that say about Ohio State if this version of Malik Murphy is their choice?
Well, and that's why I don't buy it.
That'd be weird.
I don't think in actuality that's true. Ohio State wasn't even recruiting Malik Murphy when he was a high school prospect. I don't remember Ohio State being a factor in his recruitment. So usually with a lot of these quarterbacks, who are their connections? I mean, we've seen that Max Johnson, the A&M quarterback, is going into the portal. I think one of the first things that people will say is, all right, well, if Bobby Petrino goes to Arkansas, does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of.
And we did it with Hudson Card a year ago. Remember when Tom Herman gets back into coaching, both with Casey Thompson, who actually went to Florida International, but with both him and Hudson Card, you thought to yourself, well, that's probably a school that they will look at whether or not they go there or not. Let's go through the names in the portal because there's a big one that has seemingly 1 foot in and 1 foot out that is, I think, the biggest name in the portal so far. This was an interesting. I'm going to save the biggest for last.
Okay.
Kansas State quarterback Will Howard. He's a good player. I wonder where he ends up.
Well, I mean, you mentioned an interesting idea when you said Nebraska, that region. He's in that part of the country anyway.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that.
Could it hurt when you said that? I hadn't thought of it before you said it, but as you mentioned, rules comment, what does it cost for a quarterback? Will Howard, he's won a Big 12 title. He's won a Power 5 championship as a quarterback. He's got to be and who knows? Maybe he's interesting even above whatever Nebraska's level is.
I think he is.
Right? I mean, I think he'd be interesting to somebody else, but certainly I would wonder if I'm Nebraska.
I mean, I think a guy like Will Howard, think about Bo Nix. He's ahead of where Bo Nix was when Bo Nix went into the portal. And Bo Nix has evolved into a Heisman finalist, maybe even the Heisman favorite. I think Will Howard could fall forward. I'm not saying he's going to end up in Oregon because I don't know what the hell is going to happen with Will Howard. But whoever gets Will Howard, I will think to myself, they got a good player. Can he be better? Because I would have said when Bo Nix came out, okay, they got somebody, but I don't know if that guy's ever going to be great. I think Will Howard's shown flashes of that. We'll see. I would just say that I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that kid ended up anywhere. Right? I mean, if you said he ended up being at Florida, I would go, I get it. He's a good quarterback with championship experience. I think a lot of people will have interest in Will Howard. And if you're Kansas State, that's a kick in the gut. I mean, I know they've got that kid that can run, but, I think that guy on your roster next year potentially makes you a Big 12 favorite with Texas and Oklahoma gone. And now they got to figure it out. All right, a few more names. Okay. This one is the one that caught my eye in the last 24, 36 hours. Miami quarterback Tyler Van Dyke.
Yep.
I thought that guy was a growing star when you and I got a good look at him in September. and it kind of fell apart for him. But that's another guy, a little bit like Will Howard, that if you told me he ends up in a better place, I could see him having some real success moving forward.
Yeah, now his deal this year was it an injury for Van Dyke, or was that he had a couple sloppy performances, or was it both? Because I remember at one point it was about turnovers and he got benched, right?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think at the end of the season, I think I had him in like a Heisman top 5 in September when Miami was undefeated and he was playing really, really well. And you're just starting to formulate lists and you're like, oh, well,
but
Miami's undefeated. And
we also learned, though, Ketch, throughout the season that, that Aggie pass defense could be had. And the fact that he hung damn near 50 on him, it didn't mean as much as it felt like that day. That day you felt
but even now, I feel like A&M's defense was really good. And so I still look back at that performance and go, that was a damn good performance against, the A&M defense better than I do. But like, I just, I don't know, LSU at the end of the season put up some numbers, but I always had a healthy respect for the A&M defense.
Yeah, I do, as a whole, maybe, but for the pass defense, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So when Elko comes in, your thought as an Aggie is, dude, fix that.
Absolutely. No, that's a big part of it, man. You got to be able to, if you can't, you got to have a dynamic feel on offense, but you have to be able to cover people on defense. Ole Miss got them. LSU got them. Miami got them. They woke up Alabama. Milroe and Burton showed up in College Station as ordinary college players. They left with the nation's attention. The Biletnikoff people and Heisman people had to pay attention when they left College Station because of that pass defense for A&M.
Well, couple of more before we go to buy or sell.
Okay.
Baylor's Blake Shapen goes into the portal, and I think that's real interesting because Aranda, you could make the case that, they ran off, what was it, Jerry Bohannon?
Yes.
Who was essentially their starting quarterback for most of their Big 12 championship season. They handed over to Shapen at the end of the year and say, he's our future. And it just never worked out. And he's just been okay. And we know that Aranda is about to take over the defense. He's about to hire a new OC. They're going to need a new quarterback. I mean, it really is in what will probably be a make or break year for Dave Aranda. Like, it's a big season. Everything's going to be new. And where I think Van Dyke and Howard can fall forward and elevate themselves to better programs, I think Shapen's for me at this point, he's a tier below that. So, I don't know where he lands, but I would be stunned if even Kansas State is reaching. Now they need a quarterback, right? Like, as teams are looking for quarterback, I wonder who views Shapen as a game changer. We'll see. I don't know, but I can't say that when his name went in, I went, oh, I'm about to give you but he ain't it.
Right. So you're telling me if those two guys wanted to switch places, you'd tell me Aranda would be really excited about Will Howard, but K-State would not be excited about Shapen?
Absolutely. I don't know if Baylor can get Will Howard, but I'd be all like, that's what Baylor needs to be doing. They need to be on guys like Van Dyke. Yeah, I think all those guys want to do better than Baylor. But if I was Baylor, oh my God, I'd crawl to Manhattan to get Will Howard. Again, I think Kansas State with Will Howard's probably a Big 12 favorite next year. With him gone, I don't know what the hell to think about Kansas State. I know Kleiman will do a good job, but we saw Will Howard put a scare into Texas, and it was the Will Howard show.
Oh, yeah.
He came to Austin and got them within 7 yards of all this playoff stuff being an absolute moot point. In fact, what we now know had Will Howard won that game, Texas wouldn't be in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah.
Because they would have then been tied with OU and Oklahoma State, and it would have led to ultimately the tiebreaker that last week we were saying they didn't want to be in. All right, here's the doozy, okay?
Okay.
Arkansas quarterback KJ Jefferson isn't in the portal yet. There were reports that he was in the portal, and then he made a social media post that said, I haven't made a decision yet, which...
Man, if y'all wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall for Bobby Petrino trying to re-recruit KJ Jefferson? Wow.
But it's a hell of a thing to be with somebody officially, but to not claim them. Like, I haven't decided yet. I might leave you. I might not. Just tell you how, for whatever KJ Jefferson isn't, this is a dude with nearly 10,000 yards of total offense and 88 touchdowns on his resume. And I have to believe that if he were in the portal, there's going to be a lot of people.
Yeah.
I could see him going to Oregon, right?
That's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
Thinking about what jobs open up. He's a guy that I think he ends up in the portal. Here's why. Doesn't that guy... I said this about Deuce Vaughn, and Kansas State fans got mad and thought that I was trying to get the guy to transfer to Texas, which was complete nonsense. But you feel like some guys, they get to a point and it's like, don't you want them to have a chance for their career to mean something? Like KJ Jefferson's been playing football and he's been at a school that's been losing games and nearly fired their coach, and it just hasn't come off. If you're that dude, aren't you looking for one season of fun? That guy wants to get developed into a better NFL player. He wants to go win. And he's probably not going to get that at Arkansas right away. So that's why I think he's probably gone. Who would have their eyes on him? And that'd be a complete... I tell you what, A&M is fine with Wigman, right? But that's the kind of guy that a year ago, before Wigman develops, I would say things like, boy, if A&M had Jalen Daniels, watch out. I think A&M with a KJ Jefferson-like quarterback, I think you say, okay, I think that completely, you take notice of that. And I think the only thing that was holding KJ Jefferson back was the fact that he's in a bad location. A few more names before we move on for today's first Mortal Kombat. Former Ohio State five-star Amari Abor, who was a five-star in the 2022 class out of Texas. He's in the portal. He's an edge player. He's going to have a bunch of people who are on him, but he didn't really do anything at Ohio State. I don't know. It was like Ohio State, Texas at the end for Abor. Would he come to Texas now with Colin Simmons about to be, and would Texas make a play for him with Colin Simmons on the way? They've got several edge players in this recruiting class. They've got a young Ethan Burke. You're still waiting on Colton Vasek. Like, they're not barren of guys. But as soon as he entered, a lot of Texas fans' eyes went, oh, Amari Abor, huh? So and if he, the smart move is these guys always come closer to home. Wouldn't surprise me if you see, doesn't it feel like TCU is the halfway house for five stars that are coming back to Texas, but maybe aren't on the A&M Texas level? I'm not saying he's going to TCU, but as they got JoJo Earl and Tommy Brockermeyer a year ago,
right,
they kind of feel like the place that some guys are choosing to go back to. Keep an eye on TCU just because of that. This is the one that I think will interest Texas fans.
All right.
And maybe even Texas coaches. Arkansas linebacker Chris Pooh Paul. They call him Pooh because otherwise I think he would just be Chris Paul Jr. And then it sounds like his old man plays basketball for, and I don't, so different guy. But Chris, just go ahead and call him Pooh.
Chris Pooh Paul. Pooh Paul
is different than Boo, but Pooh, he was a 2022 second team all freshman All-American and was like a all freshman SEC 2 years ago. Not this season, but 2 years ago. Very productive player, thought of as a building block at Arkansas, one of their best players. He's in the portal, and I think there will be a lot of people who, if you're looking for a starting linebacker, he's a guy. One more name, only because we've spent so much time talking about whether, and we don't have an answer yet with Jatavian Sanders and what goes on there. If he doesn't transfer, if he sticks around for another year, Texas is pretty set at tight end going into next season. If he were to go pro, Texas will absolutely be looking for a tight end in the portal. And Arizona State has a kid named Jalen Conyers, who is going into the portal and over the last 2 years caught 68 passes for 784 yards. So productive player at a position of potential need. Just keep an eye on every name. I'm telling you, for the last couple of months, tight end in the portal has been a buzzword for Texas behind the scenes. But now there's some questions about what actually happens with Jatavian Sanders. Won't be a big deal if he stays, but if he goes, the Longhorns will be looking under every rock they can to find somebody to replace that void.
Yeah, portal stuff's amazing. December 4th is when it opens up the next time, and it's going to be a lot of names out there. Somebody chatted in as you were talking about it. Longhorns going Christmas shopping, LOL. A lot of teams do it.
I mean, ain't just the Longhorns.
Right. And when you bring up a guy like an Arizona State tight end, or I think of the Michigan State guy that ends up at Florida State. I'm an Aggie fan. I watched a guy that went to Grand Valley State transfer to A&M, and he had some big plays this year at receiver. I mean, there's just so many guys out there, and you pair that up with signing day in the middle of December. It's such an exciting month now for college football, but some interesting names to keep an eye on there. You know, names we know in Big 12 country, Howard, Shapen, both interesting, but you're right. KJ Jefferson. My question for KJ Jefferson would be, is Bobby Petrino the answer to your problem? Whatever your problem is Bobby Petrino the answer? Because Arkansas has now gone all the way back around. And we can talk about the morality, right? The morality of bringing him back. Because in the grand scheme of it, Ketch, what did he do? He had a relationship he wasn't supposed to have while he was married. That relationship was with somebody that was at the university. None of that's good. Not good. Motorcycle crash, neck brace, not good. Didn't look good. But that was in 2011, I think, 2011, 2012. That's when you and I are like about to not be doing a radio show. Exactly. Not be doing a radio show anymore.
How many people does Oscar know that about that? And I'm curious, Oscar or any of our youngins in the chat, do you even know this reference?
Right.
That Blake just put on the screen.
Does KJ Jefferson even know that story? Does he even? Now, he might look it up. Or does he just think, man, Bobby Petrino knows football? Bobby Petrino knows football. You know, I mean, that I don't know. Has enough time
been a while since those guys even mattered, though?
And by the way, is it done? Or are they just thinking about it? Is it done?
I think it's done. By the way, Keenan Womack, who has sat in and hosted with you here on House Divided from Orange Bloods Live, he had this tweeted earlier. It's so dirt. Texas fans, you asked for it. You asked for it. In the last few months, SEC schools have hired Chris Beard, Hugh Freeze, Kendall Briles, Jeff Lebby, Bobby Petrino, DJ Durkin. Like this is what you've signed up for.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. And as of next July, if you're a Texas fan, you're officially allowed not to. You just got to look down your nose differently. I'm not saying you can't look down your nose, but yeah, you're asking to go to that world.
Real quick, Paxton. I meant to do this earlier. Little birdie told me, don't get mad at a little birdie. I shouldn't even say that. Chad, what can I say instead of little birdie? Little pigeon? Little pigeon? Is that different than a birdie? Do I need to come up with like a little squirrel gave me a nut? I don't know. Like, it
just sounds like you're headed towards a don't shoot the messenger. That's what it's.
The thing is, people hate the little birdie.
They don't like birdie.
If I say a little birdie told me something, they turn into Elmer Fudd.
What about a bug in your ear? Just a buzzing bug near your ear? Did they okay with that one?
A little pig in the blanket told me. No, I don't. I'm sorry, Stan, man. That doesn't really work.
No.
Call. A raven sent me a note.
That could be good. Yeah, Game of Thrones. I like it.
Ha.
Let's do it.
Let's just get right to it, though, instead of me trying.
It's good, though.
A little raven, a baby raven told me that Watts should be good for Saturday.
Okay.
So, yes, probably day to day. Sounds like, I don't want to get too specific, but it sounds like he's going to be okay. And the expectation at this point, here, just let me look at the message again. Uh-oh. Slack just crashed. Oh,
he's unrolling.
Nevertheless,
he's unrolling the scroll from the Raven.
Yeah. Call. No, I think without reading the note, the sense I'm getting, it sounds like he's going to, he, from what I was told third hand from a crow or a raven, it still needs to be cleared, but the sense is he'll likely play on Saturday, which is good. I think they need Ryan Watts, not because I think Oklahoma State could tear them apart with the passing game, but I think Ryan Watts is their best corner. So it's always good to have your best players on the field for a championship game.
All right. That was your first round of Portal Combat. We'll do it every day at 12:40. Let you know the latest news from the portal. It opens up December the 4th. We've got Brian Jones coming up at 1:20 from CBS Sports. Obviously, they've got the big SEC game. They also have Liberty trying to stay undefeated against New Mexico State. If you want to check that one out on CBS Sports Network Friday night. That's coming up at 1:20, which means right now we need to fit in buy or sell. Ketch, you want to go first or second?
I mean, I'm prepared.
Hit it.
All right. Buy or sell number one. Hey, never take that for granted. You never know when I'm just going to show up and wing it. Buy or sell number one. Portal season greater than the last month of the recruiting season.
At this point, I'm going to say buy because it's a little more of a known quantity situation. You've seen it pan out for others. So, yeah, I'm going to say when schools like Georgia and Florida State and Texas A&M and Oklahoma, when they can feel like they're getting just a little bit better and we've seen these guys help right away, yeah, I agree. Buy.
Okay. I was wondering how you would answer that. And I think I agree with you.
It wasn't that way for me. Literally 2 years ago, I'd have sold it. But now I'm buying because we've seen enough examples of it. It's hard to deny it now.
Buy or sell number two, Ricky Williams, broke the rushing record 25 years ago yesterday. This is me taking one of my questions from yesterday and applying it to today. For you, when you didn't necessarily, obviously you didn't like it, but that's the number one moment in the history of the rivalry.
Yeah, it's got to be a buy, as you've talked about plenty and we've talked about. They never seem to be great at the same time, so there's not a whole lot of those top five clash in college. It just hasn't really happened that way. So that moment, and even though the record ultimately got passed again pretty quickly, that record had stood for so long, and Dorsett's there, and it just meant a lot. And the way he did it on a long run, yeah, I'll buy. I'll say that's number one.
What's number two?
God, I don't know.
Is it Bonfire? I mean, I don't
know. The 95 game's probably in that discussion. The 90 game was a hell of a game, but
I think the Tucker kick and the Bonfire are bigger than those two moments. As much as I was at both of those games and I remember those moments.
I'll just say this. If number two in that rivalry is Tucker, everyone in the House Divided should be ashamed that that's true. That's a shameful fact if it's true. I could not.
It's not.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that is a damn shame, and it speaks to the rivalry if that's true.
I've had in the last 10 years, Tucker gets brought up all the time.
That's so
and
crazy.
They never mention. I won't say never, but
right. I know.
And I'm just curious from an Aggies perspective, if it's not, what is the highest A&M moment? Forget about Bonfire.
It's somewhere in that mid 80s run. It's 84, 85 because they were both just dominating wins. But in terms of being a great moment. I mean, that the start of that run, that's got to be one of the high moments for Aggies.
Hey, you know what? Let me just say this: Aggies and Longhorns, let's pick it up a little bit when this thing restarts. If we want to be, if you're
No
going to
doubt.
say it's one of the great rivalries of college football, and then we have a hard time coming up with a top 5, maybe you're not on the level of Auburn and Alabama and Miami and Florida State and Ohio State and Michigan. Because I got to be honest, I'm having a hard time really coming up with a top 5.
Yeah, no, it's not close to any of those because, again, they're not great at the same time. 10 wins, same time, once, ever. Like, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, but Auburn sucks, and we just got an all-time memorable game. Alabama and Auburn have like 8 freaky endings to games in the last 10 years.
Well, you got to understand, Ketch, these teams haven't met a whole lot when both matter and both have dynamic offenses. Like, think about the offenses these two teams have run out through the years. So when it's a little bit off, it can get weird. Remember 01? Remember 21-7 in College Station?
I do.
Oh,
yes.
God. Is it over? Are they still playing? Are they still? Is that game over? Whoa, my God.
I'm just saying this rivalry needs, because if we were to do Texas and Oklahoma, you could just start rattling them off, I think, pretty easily. A&M and Texas, these games got to pick it up.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Kind of an overrated rivalry.
Yeah, Dartborg 199, Westbrook and McElroy. Yeah, I brought up 95. I think that's a game that definitely needs to be brought up. But yeah, there aren't a ton of classics.
I mean, I think the 95 game's in the top 5.
Absolutely, I do too. I think 95's in there. I think 90 is in there. Ricky's game is in there, and then whatever you want to throw in for the.
There just hasn't been a lot of like badass shootouts,
right?
Where both teams are throwing haymakers at each other. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to like take buy or sell into the rabbit hole, but I'm kind of glad I asked the question because now my suspicions have been kind of confirmed true. Okay, buy or sell number 3. Don't do that. Buy or sell number 3. Oh, can you guys even hear that when it happens?
Oh yeah, I heard it.
Okay, because I never know. Oklahoma City Thunder guard Josh Giddey is being investigated for fooling around with a 15-year-old. And this is the kind of thing that should trigger a suspension until the investigation is completed. I ask because that dude's still playing ball and nobody in the organization wants to answer a question about, hey, what do you think about the fact that he's allegedly, having relations with kiddos? That's automatic suspension until that's resolved.
I would say that's a buy. Yeah, unless he can give you an absolute quick reason to think it means absolutely nothing. Yeah, you probably need to sit him for a while.
But that hasn't happened. Like there are hey, put me on the record. That never happened. He's not done that.
Yeah, that's gross.
When someone says, "Did you have sex with a minor?" and you're like, "I'm not really speaking about that today." I mean, maybe you shouldn't be playing basketball. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to be the morality police with the Oklahoma City Thunder or the NBA. But, boy, come on. Yeah. Let's take something seriously a little bit.
I agree.
Buy or sell number 4. Quite simply, Pat McAfee being Pat McAfee.
I assume that's always happening, so I'm going to say buy. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll say buy.
It's not one thing in particular. I just... in general, as a personality, watching him on TV, buy or sell Pat McAfee.
Oh yeah, I buy. I like Pat. I thought he was the obvious choice to be that next Corso. They're in the process of making that happen and trying to make it organic. Yeah, I dig him. The moment he jumped into the river in Waco, I knew he was the guy.
You know who he kind of is for me a little bit? Was Sean William Scott, is that the guy from American Pie, Stifler?
Yeah, that's him.
He's kind of Stifler, which isn't a bad thing, right? Like, he absolutely entertains me, and I'm glad that we have him. But I wonder if in 5 years, if he doesn't evolve some, then it's just like, oh, yeah, he can do Stifler, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, no, I got you. My wife's already tired of the shtick. I'm not yet.
I'm not either. Like it's by no means was that a negative Pat McAfee. I'm just reading the room a little bit. Because like he does the Aaron Rodgers interviews, and it's like,
Yeah.
look, come on, Pat. Like, I don't know. I find myself wanting a little bit more from him, but I do like Pat McAfee, just for the record. All right, and finally, buy or sell number 5. I'm going way back on this one.
Okay.
All these years later, you find John Travolta authentic in his turn as a West Texas country boy, an urban cowboy, when he played the character Buford Ewing Bud Davis. Buy or sell.
It's wild that you brought this up. In the last year to 2 years, literally in the last year, my wife and I sat down and I saw Urban Cowboy from front to back for the very first time. It's a buy. I absolutely buy the character. I love her in it. Everything works. I liked it. I thought it was a really good movie.
His best work.
It was really good. Really, really good movie. All right, we'll cut buy or sell right there because Brian Jones is ready to roll. He's adjusted his schedule for us this week. He's headed to Buckhead later in the week to take over Atlanta when Alabama and Georgia get together.
Before we bring him in, Chad.
Oh, wait, he's taking a bite of food. Wait a second. He may need a second to enjoy his lunch there.
While he finishes his food, here's what I want to ask you, Chad.
Okay.
Do you think Brian has an opinion on the movie Urban Cowboy?
Yes.
Good, bad. Do you think he knows who Bud and Sissy are?
I do. He grew up in L.A., Lubbock area, as he calls it. He's got more country in him than you'd think. I bet you Brian Jones knows about Urban Cowboy.
If he does, I bet he's more of a Pam guy than a Sissy guy. Which, to be fair, Pam was hot.
There's a lot of weird conflict. Yeah, a lot of weird conflict in that movie where you stop and think, are these people really good for one another? Like, I know who I'm supposed to be rooting for to get together, but is it really? It really was like for that era, it was the Ross and Rachel. You knew they're supposed to be together, but you're like, is that the best for the world, though?
Scott Glenn has never been anything other than Wes Hightower to me. And it really kind of has ruined I can't watch him in another movie without thinking he is Wes Hightower.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, he is absolutely awesome. He's incredible. All right. So Brian Jones, give us a thumbs up. We ready to go? He's still chewing. We didn't need to catch him mid-chew. Okay, he says he's ready to go. Brian Jones of CBS Sports. I told you earlier, Liberty in New Mexico State is CBS Sports Network on Friday evening. And then, of course, they've got the big clash in Atlanta, 3 o'clock on Saturday. That's why Brian was nice enough to rearrange his schedule this week. How are you, sir?
Outstanding. How are you two knuckleheads?
We're doing well. Let's just get it out of the way. Are you familiar with Urban Cowboy?
I'm familiar with the movie and the participants, but I have never watched Urban Cowboy.
Oh, my God. It's kind of disappointing.
Sorry.
Yeah. You and your wife should sit through that one time.
I'm a big fan of Deborah Winger.
Yeah, she's great.
And, of course, Travolta was great in Pulp Fiction and a few others. But no, never seen it. So it's a must watch.
It's a must watch. Good date night movie because they're apart. You'll definitely feel better about your own relationship as you watch Urban Cowboy. Guaranteed.
It's the city of Houston, this Houston area 40 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
And it's something special.
Yeah.
Well, that's apropos. If it's gonna help with the relationship, let's check it out.
Absolutely. There's no way your marriage is already as tumultuous as what those two are going through. There's no way. I'm just gonna say that. No way.
Okay, Chad, you go ahead. You got first question. I got my Urban Cowboy thing in, so you take over.
If you want to talk real cowboy, such as last night on our show, I dropped Doodly Squad. You know what movie that's from? Doodly Squad.
Doodly Squad. Wow, I don't know.
That big talk ain't worth Doodly Squad.
I don't know.
Granny Hawkins and Outlaw Josie Wales.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. That's old school right there.
He just proved his Texas chops.
He really did. That's what they were watching in Lubbock area back in the day. They were watching.
Yeah, we have the 3 channels. So we had to watch something. So those westerns came on. You fall asleep when golf was on, but now I love it, obviously. But that's when I became a NASCAR fan too. Other people were falling asleep. I was watching them go around in circles.
That's right. Brian Jones got into NASCAR back in the day. You just never know what you're going to get. So, Brian, let me start with.
Say, Chad, ain't your average Negro.
That's right. That's it. Hey, that is so true. Still true today. That's right. All right. So, when it comes to your Texas Longhorns, let's start with the good. Let's start with the good.
The motherfucker who said, yes, let's put Brett Yarmark's quote or video on the big ass monitor and play it back for his favorite team as we and Bert Auburn are putting our foot in their ass. Let's do that. Big round of applause for whoever thought that was a great idea to shove that in their face.
Yeah, Chad, you got to let him celebrate that victory on Friday a little bit. Flex, Brian.
My 48-hour rule, what is it, 24 hour, whatever it is, it ain't over yet. It'll be over come Saturday. But yeah, man, I freaking love that. That was glorious. Way to go, Horns. As a matter of fact, and I got ridiculed for this last night on the show. I made Bert Auburn I gave him our ICF game ball, the 5 field goals, long of 54, and of course, the new Texas record, 19 straight, man. So way to go, Mr. Auburn.
Yeah, Brian, it was incredible. And I was going to let you brag on that before we get to anything else. They beat Tech by 50 and they scored 50. It's only happened one other time with Texas and Texas Tech, 58-7 in 1999. So to say goodbye to Texas Tech that way just had to be extra satisfying for you as a guy who wore the burnt orange and white, and you tussled with them a few times, obviously. That is a hell of a way to say goodbye.
That was an excellent way, and they claim it's a rivalry. It's not a rivalry. It's never been a rivalry. They have been an annoyance, a nuisance. Every now and then, even when I was a kid going to the games in Lubbock, they would jump up and bite mighty Texas when they shouldn't have, and other teams. But it was never a rivalry, so they can go find a rivalry somewhere else. But yes, that's the way you want to go out when you know you have a huge target on your back and all that nonsense that was said during the preseason. Still can't believe a commissioner of a league would go and be so one-sided, even if 2 of your members are leaving. You want to play your cards close to the vest. You could be upset inwardly, but don't allow that to come out outwardly. So yeah, great way to send them packing. And having been on the other side of this scenario, this equation, Arkansas, I understand how other members of the Big 12 feel about Texas and OU. That's how we felt about Arkansas when they decided to leave the Southwest Conference and go to the SEC. All right, we're going to send you out with a butt whipping. And we were able to do that, beat them their last 2 years there in the Southwest Conference. So I get that, but don't publicly disclose how you really feel, because what will occur, kids, is what happened Saturday night. Actually, it was Friday night there in Austin. And I loved it. Boy, it helped digest all that good food I've been eating.
Can a Tech fan ever say anything to you?
Hell no!
Okay. That's what I wanted to make sure. Never. Like, they have to sit down and be quiet.
They're gonna say, we sorry we poked the bear. What they gonna say? What? Shut up. I don't hear nothing from them motherfuckers. And I hope the basketball team beats them twice, actually 3 times as well, if they have to see them 3.
Mm-hmm.
I know who ain't home today, Chad. I think we all know it.
Blockbuster picking up Urban Cowboy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not even through like 2 questions and we've had the double motherfucker, so we're good.
Yeah, no, like he told us early on, but now, the double, it needed to be said just a little bit. Hey, what do you think of Boo? Yesterday, he's doing the post committee press conference thing, or whatever we want to call it, the Q&A with ESPN. and he's asked specifically about Oregon and Texas, and like Boo just he ain't really about explaining himself.
They are hoping and praying that Alabama does not beat Georgia because they know they are going to have hell to pay. And if they put Alabama ahead of Texas, let's say Texas wins, hoping they do, and we'll get into that matchup. Won't be easy. But if that occurs, man, and they have to place Texas, Alabama in front of Texas, they're going to have holy hell to pay. So that's why they're ducking and dodging. They're hoping everything holds where the top three win. And, of course, Texas fans are hoping Florida State loses. And then they can possibly slide in. I think they would ahead of Ohio State, as they should. So they're him and haw. They're just, what can they say? Because this is the first time ever, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the first time ever we've been sitting here with 8 teams having the possibility of getting into the playoffs. Usually it's 5 or 6, but never 8. So obviously it would have been a great year to have the 12-team playoff this season. But yeah, they're sitting there just wishing and hoping that they don't really have to straighten out a mess, because that's what it could be. A mess could transpire. If Oregon wins, obviously, if Bama wins, this thing could be crazy. I think Michigan, you can already count them in over that very feeble offense that Iowa brings to bear. But their defense is damn good. Give them credit on that side of the ball. So I don't think they can say much, Ketch. What can they muster? They just have to let this thing play out, and they're hoping that it's in their favor from a committee standpoint, where it pretty much is understood publicly and in that committee room. This is the way you have to go.
Brian, the weird curveball I've been throwing out this week is, obviously if all 4 of the undefeateds win, the thought is they'll all 4 be in. Can you see any scenario where Florida State wins a clunker and Texas puts on such a show at Jerry World that the committee will just be wooed into that decision?
I'm going to say no. Both are big brands, and both have been down for a minute. Florida State had a pretty good year a season ago, and obviously this year unscathed thus far. I'm going to say no, as much as I would love for that to occur, but no. They won't jump Florida State. If Florida State wins, especially Florida State's winning with a backup quarterback, and I know Louisville's coming off a loss, but still a ranked foe, and I think Florida State will stay ahead of my horns.
Okay.
Brian, if Texas gets left out, what's your sense as to why the reason, besides clearly, they're not undefeated? I mean, because it could be we'll get here and there'll just be 4 undefeated teams. But if they're not, what's held them back? Because it feels like the committee's telling us something about Texas, and that they've never been ahead of Oregon, regardless of the resume and strength of schedule, best win, all of that. And then to see Ohio State slotted in front of them means that as of today, they think they're the 3rd best one-loss team. Why do you think that is?
Because what you stated, one, you can't lose to Oklahoma. Secondly, the Pac-12 has played so well. That's why Oregon's staying ahead of them. And the manner in which Oregon has been winning their ball game. You have to go back to the eye test, unfortunately. But Oregon, since that loss, they've been boat racing teams on average by 26 points, whereas Washington hasn't, and their numbers have seen a precipitous decline since the first half of the season. So that's what it is, the strength of the Pac-12. So Oregon's keep maintaining that spot. And Texas, really until this past week, really hasn't put that foot on the throat of their opponents. And so if they were out there just obliterating the competition, it's possible, they may have jumped in front of a Florida State who hasn't been blowing people away either. And don't believe Florida State has as many wins as Texas versus ranked foes as we sit here today. So that's the main reason, the Pac-12 and the fact that Texas has gotten out to big leads and allowed teams back into the ball game. and still remain unscathed. But it's that eye test, and that's when people start to sour on Texas. And I'm not a big believer in eye tests. I just want W's. I just keep winning, and which they've done since that one blemish. But I'm not in that committee room, and unfortunately, they use that as one of the factors into their formula. I think it should just be W's and ranked teams you faced, and that should be it. But obviously, I'm in the minority.
Brian, it's kind of appropriate. Texas and Oklahoma State have to do it one more time. Burnt orange, bright orange. They didn't play during the season. Now they'll play at Jerry's house. What jumps out to you in this matchup for Texas?
Well, you better stop OG2. This dude apparently, after they were sitting there 2-2, he went into Gundy's office like, man, you tripping. You need to give me the ball. That's exactly how he said it. And so they've been giving him the ball. So you got to bring it. Defense, they're outstanding. 5th ranked nationally in rush D. Number 1 in the Big 12 is Texas. You better play such as that ranking. And no arm tackling. You're going to have to bring all the funk. Those guys up front get pressure, make this guy bubble. No arm tackling. You got to wrap him up. He is a big dog. So make sure you can do that. And you look at their defense, though. They have been susceptible to the run. Oklahoma State, they've had, I think, 5-6 games where they've given up over 2 bill. UCF almost ran for 300 on them. So hopefully Texas will be able to maintain their running game. And then they were excellent last week with Blue and after Baxter went out and everyone else they threw back there. So hopefully that offensive line will be able to move around and they can exploit that rush defense of Oklahoma State. And Alan Bowman, his numbers aren't great passing the ball. I think 10 touchdowns and 11 picks. So he's underwater in that category. So if they can get him in 3rd and long, maybe get some pressure and get some turnovers on him. He did showcase his wheels a little bit last week, but that stands out. You got to stop OG2. And we say that each and every week, stop the other team's running game. And they were, I would say, holding Taj Brooks at 95 yards, pretty successful. Well, you got to pull your neck and do it again, man, because here comes another bad one, such as Taj Brooks, that can really make you look silly. So it's going to be the key to that defense. The key is going to be that defense, and they've shown up pretty much all season. And I still don't know what the hell is the issue with the third down offense and the red zone offense. I just do not get it. What the
You're
hell?
never going to get it, Brian. The season's going to end.
Right.
You're never going to get it.
It's just amazing to me. They can't do a damn thing when they get in the red zone or get close to the goal line. It's so perplexing. So be a good time to find the elixir to that problem this weekend. But I think that's going to be key. Stay away from the turnovers. Yours, I thought, watching the tape, man, he's still a little timid. I'm going back to the early season. Yours, missing on the deep shots. He's got guys open down the field, but he's been underthrowing the football, man. Hopefully he can come out and looks much better and a little bit more consistent on the deep throws. That's what you need. Intermediate stuff, he's fine, but the deep throws, got to win.
Is there a point value that they can win? I know you don't care, but if we get to, is there anything that Texas could do? Because I don't think beating Tech by 50 mattered. Could they beat Oklahoma State by 50 and the nation look at that and go, oh, let's do a second look at Texas? Or is the cake almost baked on whatever Texas is, they are?
No, I think there's time, and that's the great thing about this championship game is you have an opportunity, and everyone that's involved in these conference championship games, you have an opportunity for a last impression. So it's a grand opportunity on this stage if you can. But yes, you're right. Ultimately, get the W. But if it ends up being where you're that much better than your opponent, hell yeah, you can thrash them, go for it. And I think that can change some minds, no doubt. Because everyone's been looking at Bama and what they've been doing to teams in the second half and shutting them out and putting a ton of distance between them and say, okay, they got better. They're a different team now. If Texas can do it back-to-back weeks, why wouldn't you say the same about them?
All right, Brian, let's get to the one in Atlanta. You guys will be checking it out after Texas is done, hopefully, for them beating Oklahoma State. Give me your thoughts on the game itself. And then, of course, the big question, what if Alabama wins a 31-28 classic? Do you think they both could get in?
Wow, man, that is the $1 million question everyone's asking currently. First, I think Georgia's going to win the ball game. If you know Kirby Smart's track record, he's always seeking, as most coaches are, any and everything to motivate his charges. And he comes up with some unique ways to do so. And he doesn't have to do much now because everyone thinks Alabama is going to win. They're 3-0 versus Georgia in SEC title games. But he thinks majority of folks think Bama is the better team heading into this one. So that's all he needs to say. Hey, you're two-time national champion. You haven't lost a game since you lost to these cats in the SEC title game a couple years ago, and yet you're being disrespected. So you got to go out and prove yourself again. And I believe Georgia will prove themselves the way they ran the rock last week. Now, they gave up some yards to old Haynes King, your quarterback there. Former Aggie for Georgia Tech. Yeah, gag him. But what has happened? Every time we've seen, say, a portion of this Bulldogs defense compromised, the Auburn game, they gave up over 200 yards, hadn't done that in a couple of years. The next week versus Kentucky and Ray Davis, who had just put it on Florida. He didn't get enough, didn't gain enough ground to fill up a flower pot, so they shut him down. What happened after Cody Schrader, SEC's leading rusher, ran for about 115 on him with Missouri the next week? Ole Miss game. Nope, didn't do it. They couldn't run on him. And so now with Haynes King doing what he did last week, and you've got a more gifted athletic quarterback in Jalen Milroe. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell we witnessed last week in that Iron Bowl, man. There is something buried beneath that damn turf. That was just insanity. First of all, you don't send just two. You got to send more than two to rush the damn passer. You got to speed up the quarterback. But for him to find Bond in the back of that end zone, just phenomenal. So what a way for us to go out CBS with our last Iron Bowl. That was crazy. But Milroe is, you guys have seen him all season as well. I mean, this guy is a hell of an athlete, but it's 1-2, and then he's got to take off. He's not going to go through all his progressions. And now he's going to go up against some athletes that are similar in stature to him. These cats can run, they can thump, or they have that great front they had in years past here at Georgia? No, all of them are playing for the Eagles, unfortunately for us Cowboy fans, but still dynamite. And so I think Georgia can win this ball game. Love what Beck is doing, along with Brock Bowers. Interesting stat on Beck, man. When they send guys in motion, I think he's got 14 touchdowns, maybe 1 interception. When they don't send guys in motion, 8 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So send people in motion, damn it, if you know that's what's going to help your quarterback. But if they can run the rock as Milton did last week, and if Beck can continue to do what he's been doing, and he's been solid, very accurate, and all those different weapons. Bowers and McConkey didn't even play last week, and you had all the other cats, Lovett and Bell, of course, Milton at the running back position, and Edwards. So I'm gonna pick Georgia in this ball game, man. I think they win, and if Bama wins and all hell breaks loose, there's no way you can put well, I guess there is a way because it might occur, but I just can't fathom you putting them in front of Texas, who also wins their ball game, and they beat Bama head-to-head in their backyard. I can't fathom you doing that, but crazier things have occurred. I'm going to sit here today and say, no, that won't happen.
Okay.
Chad, I think it's cute that Brian thinks that the committee just can't do whatever the hell it wants to.
Oh, they can do what the hell they want. I'm not saying they want. I'm saying it shouldn't.
Yeah. Hey, Brian.
I was going to say real quick, we had a super chat, Chad.
Oh, cool.
Specifically, Money B wanted Brian's thoughts on, after watching practice before the season, he remembers you that conversation. He wants to know what surprised you the most with this team since then. And then on another note, do you still keep in touch with John Heibarger?
Oh my goodness, John Heibarger. Yeah, occasionally we will connect on LinkedIn. John Heibarger was a marketing guru, used to teach at the McCombs Business School, and me and my business partner, Kenyon Rashid, spoke to one of his classes there a long time ago. But yeah, John, cool cat, man. And tell him I said hello. It's been a minute, but yeah, we'll usually ping each other on LinkedIn. What has surprised me about this team, I guess the dominance on defense. I said it when we discussed that afternoon after I'd witnessed practice, that I thought these guys would be better and I thought they looked the part, but to see them dominate as much as they have, Sweat having an All-American season, Murphy, but the totality of the guys, because they've been interchangeable pretty much, especially at those end positions. And Bush, what a hell of a was that considered it was considered an interception, the kick save and the score, or whatever you want to call it. That was beautiful. And then you have him, you have Burke, you have Sorrell, so many different guys. Obviously, the young cat, Zero, I'm forgetting his name, Anthony
Hill,
yes. I mean, so many different guys that can get after the quarterback and their dominance, to be leading the nation in opponent's third down conversion. As I said earlier, fifth nationally in the rush defense, tops in the Big 12. That is some excellent defense. I guess the most surprising things has been, as we've discussed, the troubles in the red zone, troubles on third down and short, the allowing teams back into ball games and not finishing as we experienced in 2 or 3 ball games after their break. So that's been the most surprising. I thought they could win conference. I felt as though they had the players on the team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I thought the offensive line would be better. I would say this: the biggest surprise, and I think you guys would agree, Jonathan Brooks, because I remember that specific conversation. Somebody asked about the running back, and I said they look good. I didn't see a Bijan Robinson or anything that's just like, whoa, damn, this dude's different. Well, Jonathan Brooks is different. I mean, he is so smooth and he's subtle in his movements, and yet he has a burst. So I would say the running backs, man, especially Jonathan Brooks, that's been the biggest surprise.
Ketch, I just have one more. You got anything else?
No, I'm good.
Hey, Brian, give me a Pac-12 winner before we let you go. You like Bo Nix to get it done, or you think Penix and that group can beat him twice?
I said earlier that the numbers offensively for Washington have gone down since that Oregon ball game. And they're scoring about 14 points less. The yardage is down. Passing yards is down. The touchdown to interception ratio has decreased for Penix. But I feel as though their defense has gotten better. But I'm going to go with Oregon in this ball game, man. I like their defense a ton. And I think Oregon will win. It might be another shootout, but I'm gonna lean Oregon's way.
Yeah, shows like that were made for Vegas. Friday night is going to be a lot of fun, man. That's why they built Las Vegas.
I usually can't stay up that late watching them damn games, man. So I'm gonna try to stay up and watch that one. I think it might be worth it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Brian, safe travels, man. Thank you so much for rearranging the schedule. Y'all have a great time in Atlanta. And can you make the thing definitive where it doesn't mess with Texas and the rest of it? Can you tell Georgia to do that, please?
I'm going to specifically tell Kirby Smart, hey, man, get this shit right. Don't be fucking over my Longhorns, all right?
There it is.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes.
Man of the people.
There you go. Thank you, man. That's Brian Jones. It's old number 60 right there. Last man to wear 60 for a whole season at Texas, and nice enough to give us a little time this week. Fantastic. All right, before we do anything else, let me tell you about Deep Eddy Vodka. We always tell you about the Specs chat. I went to Specs, new location over in the Stone Hill area in Pflugerville. If you know it, there's a new Specs over there. I went and got myself a bottle of peach Deep Eddy Vodka. That means I've got peach, orange, lime, and cranberry in the house right now. There are 8 flavors of Deep Eddy Vodka, and folks, they got them all out there at that beautiful location. You're seeing the night view there. Go day, go night. It's awesome. The Deep Eddy Vodka tasting room out there in beautiful in Dripping Springs, 2250 East Highway 290 out there in Dripping Springs. And they will, we're coming up tomorrow. It's Thursday, Friday, 11 to 7. It's Saturday, 11 to 5. And it's 12 to 5 on Sunday. Later in the week, I will show you a picture of the flights of vodka. You can do all 8 if you want. You can do a vodka flight out there at Deep Eddy in the tasting room, or just get one of those great cocktails they put together, pair it up with the Crimson Creek Smokehouse Barbecue. It is so, so good. Deep Eddy Vodka, the tasting room. It's all about having fun, getting together with friends and family. Make your plans to get out there to Deep Eddy Vodka and that great tasting room. All right. We got a busy Wednesday going on here coming up in the crap bag. We'll continue the Oklahoma State discussion. You heard Brian talk about Ollie Gordon, talk about him a little bit more. He's got some really impressive numbers that he's been putting up. Jason Sukamel is going to join us at 2:20, talk some recruiting. Ketch, you have anything specific you want to do here? You want me to do the other half of buy or sell? Did you want to get back into some other discussions? You want to finish it up?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Ketch gave me his. We will go the other half now. Ketch, buy or sell. If Texas wins Saturday, the star of the game will be Mitchell to get that belt.
Sell.
Okay.
I think they're going to win by double digits, and I'll go with Ewers. Ends up being the guy. It could be somebody on defense too. I mean, you asked me one of the things I wanted to get into before the hour is over. Maybe that, Tavondre Sweat is going to maybe win the Outland Trophy. He's a finalist, and we can go through that in a little bit, but, it wasn't, last time Texas played in this game, there was a defensive tackle by the name of Ndamukong Suh that I wasn't the last time Texas won this game, not played in it, but the last time they won it, we saw an all-time great, performance from a defensive tackle. I wonder if Tavondre Sweat might have one of those in the bag going into this weekend. So I'll go sell that it's Mitchell. I think it could be a lot of different guys on that offense and maybe even a few on defense.
It's ironic. The one I had for you yesterday had Sweat in it. Buy or sell, number 2. Forget next November. Texas is facing the toughest October ever in 2024.
I mean, just what we know of it, probably buy. It's loaded. It's loaded. And by the way, if you want to be in Austin on the weekend of that Georgia game, you better have already had a hotel. Find someone to stay with. Hotels probably not going to happen. You'll be staying in Waco for that game if you haven't already. Because if you don't know, Chad, the F1 event, same weekend.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
That the city was already booked before they give us Georgia and Texas in the middle of October. November's a doozy too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting Arkansas a week, I guess 2 weeks before A&M.
True.
There's no way to rig that schedule so that it's not going to – September might be a doozy as well. Let's see who they put in that. But Michigan's going to be there. It might be that September, October, and November are all really difficult months for Texas football.
All right, buy or sell, number 3, Ketch. Ollie Gordon carries for Saturday, 25 plus.
Sell. I don't know that it's going to get that high.
Okay. All right, buy or sell, number 4. After the CFP came out last night, you can see Bama winning and being left out and Georgia losing and getting in.
Buy. Absolutely. It's probably the question that I wanted to ask Brian which is, I think Georgia's in. I think Georgia's in, and I was curious of like, barring getting their butts kicked by Alabama, if it's a two-score game, then all bets are off. But barring Alabama just whipping Georgia, I think Georgia's in, and I don't know that I see the path for Alabama in. And I know that sounds crazy because there are people who are going to say they're going to have the same record and one team's going to have the conference. And, maybe it opens maybe if some other things happen, yes. But I think Georgia's in, full stop.
Okay. And finally, Ketch, buy or sell today. Chadwick Boseman would have been 47 years old. R.I.P. Black Panther, better movie than Thor Ragnarok.
Buy.
Okay.
Love both movies. Thor Ragnarok might be more fun. Just like there's no stakes. It's just a good old fun Marvel movie.
That's a great way to describe that movie.
But I will go. I thought Jordan was great as the heel in the movie. I think it's one of the great.
Awesome. Yeah.
I think some people underestimate how good of a performance that was. And you add in, I think, the quality throughout the rest of the movie. Yeah, I will. Yeah. I think they land the last two Avengers movies. They really do. That's a great 1-2 punch to end that kind of era of Marvels. So if you take out those two Avengers movies, I probably have Black Panther rated at the top of the rest of the heap.
Yeah, such a loss for them, too. Just can't believe he's gone. Rest in peace. He would have been 47 years old today. All right, there's some buy or sell for you. We do it every day at 1. We split it up today because of Brian Jones, because, he's Brian Jones.
Well,
all right.
Portal Combat bled into buy or sell. Then
what are you
that bled into BJ, and then it all bled in to the rest of the hour.
Portal Combat, when Will Howard and KJ Jefferson need a new home. That's what we had today.
I just saw an interesting addition to the portal.
Okay.
I don't even know this guy. He could be Adam and Eve as far as I'm concerned. But there's a guy named Cade Bennett who's a 2-time all-conference guard and was on the Outland Trophy watch list at San Diego State.
Wow.
He's in the portal. And that's to me, he's the perfect example of what you can find in the portal that maybe it doesn't apply to Texas, a guy like that necessarily. But I think in almost every major conference in America, there are teams that need to get better on the offensive line. And you can reach out and take a guy from San Diego State who maybe isn't an NFL prospect, but is a really good college player. And suddenly you're better up front in an instant and being able to go out and take a guy from San Diego State. That's what I love. And this guy's got an opportunity to have been able to play his entire career at San Diego State. And maybe at the very end, he gets one shot to play major college football. It's one of the things I like about the portal is that a guy like that can perform, can have a lot of success at a lower level at a what conference is San Diego State in?
They're still Mountain West.
Is that Mountain West?
Yeah.
It'd be cool if that guy gets a big shot somewhere as in one of the bigger conferences. Yeah. I dig that about the portal, that guy has a chance when otherwise he'd have to sit out years and, good for him.
Yeah, I think it's all going to filter down to those blood and guts positions as well. As cool as it is to get a receiver or a quarterback, obviously, that can help you, that's a massive kind of position to watch out for because the portal, to me, it takes those mid-level teams and makes them pretty good. It takes the pretty good and sets them up to be great, and it makes the great teams elite because you just get those little ingredients you need. I'll keep that name in mind. Real quick, Ketch, I hadn't checked for you that.
Cold-blooded, man.
JD, Chad Hastings, former 2-star co-host, enters the transfer portal. Wow.
Damn. There's a lot to unpack there because he's calling. That's kind of insulting.
It really is. Yeah. Is he directing that at me or is he directing it at some other co-host I've had?
No, he's saying that you're a 2-star.
Yeah. Well, geez, JD. Happy Wednesday to you. Lord. $5 super chat. We'll just leave that there. Steve Worcester's jersey. Great name. A&M rivalry top moment. Number 5, Texas at number 2, A&M 1975. First Aggie win in 8 years. That's a good one to bring up. That is the year they both won 10 games. So that probably has to be put in the discussion. Ketch and I don't remember it because that's the year I turned 1, and I don't think Ketch was alive yet. But yes.
No, I think my mom was having sex in 75, making little Jeff Ketchum.
That is a gross thought, but thank you.
Well, because I was born in 76.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe that game motivated her and motivated the process.
My mom was 17 and getting pregnant back in 75.
That is probably not how we should present that, but
I mean,
what are you going to do? You know what? We've already broken any and all rules of decorum because I just got called a 2-star. So there you go. Apparently, Gary Patterson wanted to recruit
my
me.
mom's in her 60s now. It's not too soon. Okay.
Apparently, Gary wanted me at TCU back in the day, or maybe I could have gotten Mike Gundy to care about me at Oklahoma State way back in the day. All right, so we have technically crossed over 2 o'clock. We can get into some
Sandman. Sandman, you don't even have to do that.
Yeah.
My mom is well known. Alice Mama Ketchum. People know her. The thing they've never said about Mama Ketchum is she's a saint.
What was your name? What was the name in Anchorman? Was it Becky Mantooth? Is that what was that her name at the end for Vince Vaughn? Becky Mantooth is a saint. They're at this Dorothy. Thank you, Blake. Dorothy Mantooth. Oh, what a great moment that was. Dorothy Mantooth is a saint. Oh, it's great. All right, Craig, Chad, what are your thoughts on WWE sending big guns to Arlington? We talked about that a little bit yesterday on the show. I haven't heard. If you've heard an actual name that we know is going, let us know. I have not heard about technically who's going to be in Arlington. We threw out Undertaker as an obvious idea yesterday. Now that would have maybe too much Longhorn connection for him, but that's a massive name they could go with. Go with Stone Cold if you can get him because he's from Texas. Maybe that's an idea, but those are the first 2 that kind of jumped into my mind. So, Craig, if you hear something,
what was your reaction to CM Punk coming back?
Surprised, but it's something that's been talked about behind the scenes for a little while. So, wasn't completely shocked, but it's one of those that after 10 years, part of you didn't know if they would actually go there. So, it was a huge moment, and you don't hear
massive pop.
I was about to say, you do not hear pops like that very much. There's only 2 or 3 other things I could say that I've heard that kind of compares to that type of pop.
This is the official release from the Big 12 yesterday, talking about the WWE superstars that will be there, including Undertaker.
Oh, beautiful. They are going to go. Okay, there you go.
I was going to say, you're going to need to blow that up because I can't read nothing.
Undertaker.
Sheamus is going to be there, Liverpool fan.
Undertaker, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, Jade Cargill. Oh, Jade Cargill. Wow. Jade is a wrestler they got from. She was in AEW. Ketch, she is one of the finest things you will ever see in your life. That is a good move. Ricochet, Raquel Rodriguez, very talented, very attractive as well. Did you look up Jade? Dude, she's unbelievable. She is unbelievable.
She had a no face out of. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Think of her right now as kind of a smoking hot Bill Goldberg in terms of matches. They've had her in a bunch of squash matches. They need to develop that part, but if they do, look out. So that's some good choices. Nelly's going to be a part of
Weights Day.
What is that?
I said she doesn't miss Weights Day.
No, she does not. No, she's built. She is built.
I would not. I mean, I kind of wouldn't mind her putting me in a headlock, but at the same time, she'd win.
Yeah, no, you'd be proud to wear that neck brace for however long they made you wear it after that. Absolutely. All right. Before we get to some Oklahoma.
Hold on, real quick. Breaking news: T'Vondre Sweat has been named Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year.
Hey,
There we go. All right.
No word yet on whether or not Byron Murphy's been named Big 12 defense. I don't think it's going to go the way Sark wants it to, where like they break the trophy in half and share it. T'Vondre Sweat, there's a I don't have an actual Heisman vote, but I pretend like I do every weekend. There's a world where on this weekend, my final Heisman vote, I could see myself like sneaking Sweat into the top 3. I don't like it when it's quarterback.
There you go.
I mean, I think Sweat is, and by the way, it looks like they've not just, I got to look for the damn, I'm super interested in this now because they've,
I said they throw out all the Big 12 stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
So I want to see what the all Big 12 team looks like. All right. So I'm going to pull that up.
You pull it up. I tell you what, let me do sinus and snoring while you're doing that.
Go for it. Yes.
Perfect. Let me tell you about sinus and snoring specialist. Jeff's going to look that up. We'll talk about the Big 12 stuff. Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year is T'Vondre Sweat. Congratulations.
Holy shit.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Mike Gundy, Big 12 Coach of the Year.
Wow. Mike Gundy, Big 12 Coach of the Year. We'll get you more after I tell you about sinus and snoring specialist. There's your QR code to sleep better, rest better, feel better. Get rid of your allergies for good. My wife, I'm not saying she's a totally different person. She's not. My wife's a great person to be around and normally, but she has, because of the job she has, she gets up early. She go through some, get home and you can see that just kind of tired on her face, right? She doesn't look as tired anymore. She's telling me how much better she's feeling. She's sleeping so much better now that she has got the CPAP machine. She's gotten it figured out. She's really gotten into using it and it's fantastic. Everything, I am not worried about hearing. I may have heard, I don't know, 2% of the time. There's a word for it. There's a percentage for you for the Aggie fans out there. Like 2% of the time, maybe there's a little bit of sound that I'm hearing that I would say is a snore. But man, she's been doing so well with it. You can too, whether it's that route, whether it's the route I took, because everything is different for every person. That's your QR code. Sinus and snoring specialist. They can do so much for you. Check them out by the end of the year. If you've got a flexible spending account, it'd be a great time to use it. If you've met your deductible, it'd be a great time to deal with stuff like allergies and sinuses and all the stuff that has been holding you back a little bit. Feel a lot better. Sinus and snoring specialists. Feel rested, feel healthy, feel much better, like they always say at Sinus and Snoring Specialist. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. All right, let's get back to the holy shit. Mike Gundy wins Coach of the Year.
All right, so let me tell you it's kind of shocking.
Okay.
Maybe it shouldn't be. So Ollie Gordon's your Offensive Player of the Year.
Okay.
T'Vondre Sweat is your Defensive Player of the Year.
All right.
Adonai Mitchell is Offensive Newcomer of the Year.
Way to go, 5. Okay.
Kansas defensive lineman Austin Booker is the Defensive Newcomer of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State quarterback Rocco Becht is the Offensive Freshman of the Year. Anthony Hill of Texas and Ben Roberts of Texas Tech are the Freshmen of the Year. And let's just keep it real. Ben Roberts does not deserve to be on a list with Anthony Hill. I don't know how that happened. I don't know who watched Ben Roberts play this year and said, you know who I think he's as good as? That 5-star Anthony Hill at Texas. Just saying. Austin McNamara was the Special Teams Player of the Year. Okay, whatever. A punter. Cooper Beebe, Offensive Lineman of the Year. Holy shit, Byron Murphy, Defensive Lineman of the Year.
Sark got it. Sark did it.
He talked it into existence.
Well done, Sark. Well done. Now he talked those into existence. So you know what? He doesn't even care that he didn't get the Coach of the Year. He's fine.
Okay. So those are your awards. Let's go over first team all Big 12 a little bit, okay?
All right.
So Dylan Gabriel's your quarterback. Ollie Gordon and Taj Brooks are your running backs. Ben Sinnott from Kansas State, your fullback. The wide receivers are Javon Baker, Drake Stoops, Xavier Worthy.
Mm-hmm.
They put 2 tight ends on the first team, which I don't ever remember seeing that. Maybe they tied, but Jared Wiley and Jatavion Sanders make first team all Big 12.
Weird.
The offensive line. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I was thinking maybe it's because they had taken a fullback position out, but they left it in there and then did 2 tight ends. That's kind of crazy. They went with the what's that? The 32 formation. Go ahead.
Offensive line, the only Longhorn that makes it is Kelvin Banks. Much deserved, but they look, Cooper Beebe's an All-American, so you would think he was going to be there. I'm surprised that Dominique Pooney is in over Christian Jones. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me at all. Patrick Paul from Houston, he's very good. I get that. Zach Frazier of West Virginia, whatever. Bert Auburn makes it. Xavier Worthy makes it, both as a wide receiver and as a return guy. Congratulations to Worthy on that.
Nice.
Defensive line. The Longhorns on this. Excuse me. It's the first time I've sneezed on doing this in a while. Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, Jalen Ford. I mean, yeah, right?
Yeah, not a surprise.
I think what's interesting is that if you go to the second teams, the answer of who is going to be second team all Big 12 quarterback, it's not Quinn Ewers. It's Will Howard, who we've talked about on this show.
Yeah.
Jonathan Brooks makes it as second team running back. And Adonai Mitchell makes it as a second team receiver.
All right.
Apparently, Texas only has one of the 10 best offensive linemen in the league.
Wow. So Christian Jones wasn't even second team.
No. And they've got guys on this list who just aren't better than Christian Jones.
That is surprising. Now, for you, would there have been any other offensive linemen this year that would have reached that level? Campbell, Majors. Is there anybody else for you that should have been considered, or is it just Jones?
I would have probably just gone those 2 guys.
Yeah.
Although Jake Majors has actually graded out pretty well. So I was curious to see if at 11-1, Texas would have more respect there, but apparently not. And then on the defensive side of the ball, only Jahdae Barron makes the second team.
Mm-hmm.
So the 11-1 number 7 Texas team doesn't quite dominate the all-conference team the way we've seen Oklahoma teams, TCU a year ago.
Yeah, let's just
talk it out. I was going to say, are there any guys that you think absolute Sanborn doesn't make it as a punter on either first or second team? That's a little surprising.
I definitely was thinking of Sanborn. Has Anthony Hill had the kind of season that should get this some kind of attention?
No, I think Jahdae Barron should have been on the first team.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I'm a little surprised that Quinn Ewers didn't get a little bit more respect.
Yeah, I would have assumed he was going to be second team. It just kind of speaks to the overall perspective on Texas. We've been talking about, Ketch, with the CFP committee. This is an even closer group, right? This is the Big 12 media that votes on this. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you're talking about the people that have worked day in, day out. It's their job to deal with this conference. Normally, when you have a team do what Texas did, they're going to dominate stuff like this. And yeah, it didn't happen the way I would have assumed.
But Ewers, I just assumed it was going to go Gabriel 1, Ewers 2.
Me too.
Because one guy's team's playing for a championship and he's got better stats than the guy whose team lost 4 times and isn't playing for the championship. So I think there's a Quinn Ewers snub there. Again, I think Christian Jones got snubbed. I think defensively, I guess it comes down to, do you think any other Texas DBs, whether it be Watts or Terrence Brooks, deserved to be at that level? I think you could certainly make a case, but I'm looking at who they chose for first team DBs and I kind of get it, but I think I think Texas probably needed to have a few more guys on this list.
Yeah, the big one to me is absolutely Jones. I agree with you on the punter discussion. Not that you're going to flip out about a punter not being included, but I thought Sanborn needed to be in there somewhere. My question to you, back to the overall awards, do you think that the coach of the year thing is out of whack? Do you think Gundy should have gotten it, or do you think there should have been an argument for Sark?
I mean, I think Sark should have won it.
Okay.
I think Mike Gundy is the second team in the. I'm not putting a coach as coach of the year if they lose 45-3 to Central Florida. I mean, I'm not.
Right. They got dominated in that game.
I can't say what this is to me, making Gundy the coach of the year. It's taking when Sarkisian goes 5-7 and then they go 8-5 the next year. It's like, look at all of that improvement. They won 3 more games than they did a year ago. And it's like, well, they had to suck really bad for 8-5 to feel like a massive step forward.
Right.
You're rewarding Oklahoma State for a dismal start to the season that Mike Gundy's like largely responsible for. When they lost to South Alabama at home by 26 points, for them to turn it around and play good football, it's like, oh, well, look how, yes, they made a lot of strides, but you're not rewarding the guy who went to Alabama and won in Tuscaloosa. You're not rewarding the guy with the best team in the country. And they they won 8 games a year ago. So they've made this is Sarkisian not getting rewarded for having the best team, making the biggest step forward, winning the biggest game, having the most consistent team. Like, I don't know. This feels like we're not going to give it to Texas. We're not going to give it to Sarkisian because they have all the toys. But boy, it ignores a ton of context because Oklahoma State hasn't accomplished anything. And oh, by the way, this weekend will likely end with Sarkisian having the Big 12 championship team. So I don't know. Again, I got a holy shit out of that one. I was certain that Sarkisian would be the coach of the year. I thought it was an easy call.
Yeah, no, you scared me with it. That was good. I like it. It was a holy shit out of nowhere.
It was just one of those, like, we talked about this a couple of days ago where we were talking about, like, you probably give offensive player of the year to Ollie Gordon. I said I would be, who the hell else would they give defensive player of the year to if not T'Vondre Sweat? Coach of the year felt like Sark. I feel bad for Sark. That should have been his award. I know he'd rather have Big 12 championship trophy, right? But I think Sark's worthy of being in the discussion for national coach of the year. I don't think he'll win it, but I think of all the coaches in the Big 12, he's the easiest call there. Not Mike Gundy. I'm Does Mike Gundy win it if they don't come back and barely beat BYU this weekend?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, Sark has an opportunity now to, I can think of a guy he should probably call about the mindset of this and maybe just call Vince and ask him about this. He has an opportunity to lose the award, but ultimately win a championship over that person. So he's got a chance to do that. Have a little Vince over Reggie feel. Obviously not as big as stakes, clearly, in either case. But I agree with you. I thought he should have gotten it. There's certain years where you want to reward. I get rewarding. It doesn't always have to be the coach of the best team. It does not. But in this version of the Big 12, I think it was clear. I think it was very clear by the end of the year who that guy was.
We got Jason Sukumel, orangebloods.com, ready to join us. We haven't even had our recruiting discussion, Chad, to set the stage for Sukumel. Like, that's how busy today's been.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a lot going on. But we got the portal about to open. We got signing day right around the corner. And we thought it'd be a good day for yet another recruiting discussion with Jason Sukumel. Check out orangebloods.com for all the stuff as we head up towards signing day, because it never stops. Jason Sukumel knows he's going to nod as I say it. Recruiting never, ever stops. That's why he's Jason Sukumel. How are you, sir?
I'm good, dude. I'm hoping my voice holds up. I got a little scratchy throat going on, but hanging in there, Chad, ready for the the stretch run, as you said, it never stops. But it's really going to be fun the next 3 or 4 weeks about it.
No doubt. Where do we start, Ketch?
You tell me, Jason. Do we start with Kobe Black? Do we there's a lot of frying pans on the stove to pick the one where we start? Is it just start with the biggest name still in the oven or on the stove and go from there?
Yeah, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong starting with Kobe Black, right? The of course, defensive back out of Waco, Connolly. He was supposed to actually be announcing today. For those people who've kind of not been paying real close attention, his announcement was supposed to be today. I was told last week that was kind of tentative. There's some stuff going on at his school where the auditorium was taken up, but he set a date today, so he's going to announce on December 13th. So that is 2 weeks from today. And that's interesting for a couple of reasons, Ketch. I was told it would probably be next week. Okay. Well, now they're pushing it back 2 weeks. Well, why 2 weeks? Why is that interesting? Well, the transfer portal opens up on Monday, right? There's been a lot of speculation that Kobe's brother, who of course plays as a defensive back, Corey, plays for Oklahoma State, might be looking to transfer. Okay. I did ask someone close to that situation this week, and I'm going to have this in the war room. I'm kind of getting out ahead of myself a little bit, but he is considered, let's just say that. He didn't walk for their senior day, okay, last weekend. He is considering it, and I'm told if he can find a suitable place on a bigger platform, he might want to take that opportunity. He had a really good year this year, so he thinks, hey, maybe if I play on a bigger platform, I can even increase my exposure next year. It'd be his COVID year. He'd have that one last year to take. Now, why is it interesting that they pushed it back 2 weeks? Well, that gives Corey Black potentially some time. If he wants to enter his name in the portal, I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to look at this. I want to see when their classes end. I know a lot of colleges end their classes next week on the 8th. If that's true with Oklahoma State, he could very well be at Kobe's announcement. If they had done it next Wednesday, that wouldn't be possible. Being that it's on the 13th, it's highly possible, and I need to confirm this, that he could be at Kobe's announcement. Could we have some kind of dual announcement? I don't know. We'll see. But I just know that is on the table for Corey Black to transfer to a bigger stage. Texas certainly fits that bill. I like Texas's position. I'm telling you, man, yesterday I talked to some Oklahoma State people just gathering some information for my matchups that I'll post on Orange Bloods. I was kind of surprised to hear it, but there's weirdly some confidence coming out of Stillwater that Oklahoma State is very much in play for this one. But I just think kind of the timing of it is pretty interesting. I think we might be in for some interesting news. Kobe, maybe even his brother in a couple weeks. I still like Texas's chances there.
Just to circle back on a little bit of the conversation there, Jason, I think I still wonder. I guess the number 2 team is Oklahoma State.
I think so, yeah. Now, real quick to jump in, and maybe this is where you're going. That does give Kobe now an opportunity to go visit A&M too, right? If A&M wants to try to he never did take his A&M official visit. I think A&M's 3rd right now, but you know what? Hey, if he goes and visits A&M, before that commitment date, that could certainly shake things up as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that the dynamics there are that A&M would be really late to the party. I mean, to commit to a coach that doesn't have I don't know that he and Elko have no relationship, but it can't be that advanced based on the way we've seen the recruitment. So you got A&M would be trying to get in late, and if they can get him on campus, don't completely discount the Aggies. I mean, they've been the school that I think Texas has been a little wary of the entire time. The thing about Oklahoma State is Oklahoma State people there can feel like they're number 2, and they might be, but Corey Black literally might leave. And if Corey Black is thinking about leaving to go play somewhere else, it's kind of hard for me to believe that then Kobe would take a lesser – I mean, Oklahoma State in the Big 12 just isn't as high of a profile for a guy like that situation as Texas or even Texas A&M at that point. So I think it's Texas all the way, but we shouldn't be shocked if it's Oklahoma State. But I think I had Corey Black on my all Big 12. I think if there's someone watching right now and is asking, could Corey Black from Oklahoma State play for Texas? I think the answer is absolutely yes. If they were going to take Gavin Holmes from a year ago in the secondary, and we've seen them take some guys through the portal that can play in the secondary. I think Corey Black would make the Texas team better. So
well, let me jump in, Ketch. I feel very confident. I'll just say this: Texas feels the same way.
okay,
They would take Corey Black. They feel, I believe they feel that Corey Black could help that defense. So absolutely, I think those, back channel conversations have probably happened. I'm just laughing at this, the chat stuff. Jason versus Chad for a chug off. Chad, I don't know if you're aware, I chugged a beer after you did yours.
Yeah. Did you do it in under a minute? Because
that's why I did it. I was like, I was like, oh, come on, Chad, you got to be faster than that. So they challenged me, so I did it. So now they want us to do a chug off.
Okay, we should do that. We'll figure that one out. We will figure that.
I think he just wants the excuse to drink a beer real fast, Chad.
I don't have any on me today, but maybe next time.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we've covered both. I think, Chad, I stumbled upon some more war room. Just looking at the shit-eating grin on Jason's face, it indicated to me that there's even more that will be in the war room tomorrow on Corey and Kobe. So, Jason, pick the next place for us. Where do we go next on this?
We can talk about some uncommitted guys or potential flips, and we'll get to Xavier Filson. But let's start with some good news, right? I mean, they're all good news if they're going to flip. But, Ryan Wingo, I was able to connect with Ryan on Sunday, the 5-star Texas receiver commitment. I was a little surprised at how my conversation went, if I'm being honest. Like, he came in for the Texas Tech game. He and his family flew in on Thursday. He went to the team meetings on I think it was Thursday night. He was at the game, of course, on Friday night, flew home Saturday. I called Ryan and he said all the right things, what you'd expect. Hey, it was a great game, great win, dominant win, great environment. At the end, we kind of said, hey, let's talk about your decision to go to Texas. And I asked him, I mean, he chose Texas over the in-state Missouri Tigers in a very closely contested recruitment. I've been on record. People at Missouri have been on record. Oh, Missouri's not going to just throw in the towel. I asked him, hey, what's it like with Missouri? Are they still coming after you? And he said, not really. He goes, I don't really hear from them. And he goes, that's fine with me. I'm committed. He came in last weekend. He brought his dad. He brought his grandmother who'd never been to Austin. He brought an uncle who'd never been to Austin. So it sounds to me like Ryan Wingo is all in. I thought when he committed a little over a month ago, this would be one where we might be kind of following that one pretty closely on every day leading up to signing day. I don't get that impression, man. I feel like he is 100% locked into Texas. Hey, it's recruiting. Again, I know things can change in a heartbeat, so never say never. But I thought that was a bit of unexpected good news that maybe hasn't been as celebrated as maybe it should be. 5-star receiver Ryan Wingo feels like he is very locked in for Texas. I don't think Missouri's really a threat at this point.
Jason, I know you guys like to say mama is important, but damn, Missouri's not in touch and grandma got to come like that. That seems like a big deal. Talk to me about, just continue that discussion, because that game was so cool. I'm assuming for any fan that was in attendance, for the fans watching on TV, saying goodbye to Tech that way, but for a recruit to get to witness that, if they're considering Texas, any other names you would throw out besides Ryan Wingo that maybe got to soak that up?
There were some underclassmen that were there, and there were a couple commitments that were there. The other big one to mention, and it's a good segue, it's a guy I wanted to talk about, is Jarrett Gibson, who is the running back recruit out of IMG Academy in Florida. Well, this one's interesting because about a week and a half ago, there was some scuttlebutt that he might go to the Florida State game. Now, a little background, he's been to 2 games at Florida this fall already. He was a one-time Florida Gator commitment, okay? I reached out, must have been like Tuesday of last week, to someone close to Jarek, and I said, hey, is this happening? And they're like, no, that's Twitter BS. He's coming to the Texas game on Friday. Well, he did come to the Texas game on Friday. Saturday, he flew home. He went to the Florida game. He did wind up going to the Florida State game. I talked to Jarek on Sunday. I didn't even know at this point he had gone to that game. I was still under the assumption he hadn't. We talked about the Texas game. It was great. He loved it. He loved the atmosphere. He loved he said the butt whooping they put on him or something. I can't remember what he said, but he had a great visit. But I said, well, what about Florida? You didn't end up going there. He goes, no, I did go. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, hey, Jarek, I said, what does that mean for Texas? You've been there a few times. Is this anything that Texas needs to be worried about? He did tell the Texas coaches he was going. He got their blessing, he said. But I said, does Texas have anything to worry about, Chad? His answer was, I don't really want to talk about that.
Ah,
I'm like, okay, that's a bit of that's not the answer you want to hear if you're Texas.
yeah.
Now, the key here, Florida's trying to get him in for an official visit, possibly, I guess it'd be not this weekend. I think it's the next weekend. If that happens, man, that's, then there's a pretty good chance I think Texas and Jarrett Gibson might part ways, and it might be a mutual decision at that point. If he doesn't take that visit, I think he sticks with Texas. He really loves Tashard Choice. He's been to Austin. Man, I've lost count how many times he's come to Austin. So he loves Texas, but he keeps showing up at this at this Florida campus. I mean, in all the turmoil they've got going there with coaching changes within their football team, and who knows what Napier's future looks like. So it's a bit of an interesting dynamic, but Florida is still very much in play there. Now, if we transition off of that, you've got Xavier Filsaime, who is a defensive back commit for Florida out of McKinney, Texas. He's been committed to Florida forever. He ended up taking a Texas unofficial midweek last week. Okay. So in my mind, I think I probably put on Orange Bloods. I think this one's going to flip to Texas. Well, then he goes to the Florida game Saturday night. While he's down there at the game, he's actively recruiting for Florida. So I'm thinking, okay, that's probably, that's obviously a good sign for Florida. Well, then on Monday, Florida fires their defensive back coach, and even Xavier Filsaime tweets something like, what the hell, or I don't remember what he exactly tweeted, but I'm not sure how that one's going to play out. I think he'll take a Texas visit, and I'll get to that in a second, but I posted in my column yesterday, my one prediction, my 3-2-1. I'm predicting, and I don't know for certain either one yet, but I'm predicting that Jarrett Gibson does take that Florida visit, and maybe he flips to Florida. I also think the other is true. I think Xavier Filsaime flips to Texas. And let me tell you why. Like we were told on, I think Monday night, whenever they announced that Corey Raymond had been let go from the Florida, their DB coach, someone close to Xavier said, hey, he wants to just kind of take some time, see who they hire, spend some time talking about it with his family. So I don't think he's going to flip, this week or this weekend or anything crazy like that. But listen, if he truly wants to evaluate and see who they hire, well, in the meantime, you better be covering your bases, right? So you better take that Texas official visit, because if you don't, and they hire someone that you just don't mesh with or whatever, then you're kind of behind the eight ball. So it just makes perfect sense that he should and probably will take a Texas official visit. Then he'll kind of make a final decision after Florida fills out the rest of that staff. But I think that one looks pretty good for Texas right now.
Jason, I'll ask this for Chad. Maybe he was going to ask it next or not. Any vibe on Elko and the Aggies? And I know there had been some suspicions, like would Texas, go in for Ty Anthony Smith and pull him in? For those that don't know, he's the Jasper linebacker that Texas was hot to trot for back when he committed to Texas A&M. What are you hearing? What are you seeing on the landscape? Just A&M in general as a topic.
It's been pretty quiet, and I think for A&M fans, that's a good thing. I actually talked to an A&M reporter today, and I was kind of picking his brain, like, hey, what are you hearing? And by and large, they feel pretty good about keeping that class together. I will say that Terry Bussey is a name that was mentioned. He's a guy that we've all talked about a bunch. A&M feels like they're going to be able to hold on to him, but I think I should know this. Did he visit LSU last week, or LSU's not playing this week, right? So it'd have been last week. So LSU's still in play there. He's still Texas is still talking to Terry Bussey, but A&M feels good about holding on to him. They are going to have maybe some recruits come in this weekend, I was told. For sure, they're going to have some come in next weekend. These would be official visits, okay? Even guys that have already taken official visits to A&M, there is this new rule. Anytime there's a coaching change, recruits can take a second official visit to that same school. So I look for A&M to try to get as many of their current commitments on campus again for second official visits. I think that's going to tighten things up with a lot of those guys and ease a lot of their concerns. And Ty Anthony Smith, the linebacker out of Jasper, you mentioned, Texas has kind of been working him a little bit, trying to get him on campus. Jasper's still alive in the playoffs. They play this weekend. Probably their season's going to come to an end this season. I don't expect him to visit Texas. As things stand right now, I think he's going to wind up sticking with Texas A&M.
And just for the record, Jason, at this moment, has there been any announcement of Evan Stewart going into the portal asking for a friend?
Yeah, not yet. That the portal officially opens on Monday. And listen, Evan, and I like Evan. I covered Evan as a recruit. You know, he obviously was committed to Texas at one time. He was actually really good to me as a recruit. He would take my calls. But Evan's a bit of a wild card, man. You never know what might happen with Evan. Kind of a wide receiver staple, if you will. That those guys are usually wildly unpredictable. Thus, the Ryan Wingo thing was so surprising to me when there was seemingly no drama with Ryan Wingo. But you know, I thought, you know, everybody kind of thinks that he's probably going to enter the portal. A&M people think, yeah, that's a strong possibility. There's been talk about Alabama being a major player there behind the scenes. But, you know, A&M obviously is making a change at their wide receiver coaching position. I think that helps A&M. I think A&M will present him with a nice NIL opportunity. I'm not fully convinced that he's not back at A&M next year. But, again, it's Evan Stewart. It's a wild card. You know, we'll see where things go over the next few weeks.
Well, and it sounds like the Damian Craig departure.
I think that helps.
Exactly. Chad, there had been some conversation that if Craig stayed, that would push Evan Stewart into the portal, and that his departure maybe keeps him around. Fascinating, given that he just bailed on the Aggies last week and just decided I'm good for the season and didn't play the LSU game. It would be very, Jason, it would be very Evan Stewart-ish to not bounce, but take all the steps that suggest a bounce and then just stay.
And collect a huge paycheck out of it, probably. And Evan Stewart, I will forever remember him. A, the first time I saw him, I was like, this kid's a freak, great player. B, he committed on a Thursday night and at midnight, just randomly. Thank goodness it was a war room night. I just happened to be up. I think I was watching a movie, having a couple beers by myself. I'm like, oh shit, Evan Stewart committed. And then he decommitted like literally like a month later, like on a Thursday at a midnight. Like, come on, dude. Like, I'm too old for this kind of crap. But thankfully I was awake both times it happened. So I was able to get the news out right when it happened.
Hey, y'all know there's a chance the next time Mike Elko starts swaying back and forth, Evan Stewart just might be right there with him. You just never know.
Whatever Evan does, it will happen after midnight, though, I think is the moral of that story. All right, Jason, anything else or?
No, is that super chat? I don't know if that's for me or I haven't even read it yet, but I just saw that pop up. It's from Tom G. So
we'll pop that in there. Let's see. What does it say? With Texas making the Big 12 championship game for the first time in over a decade, what are the odds of a full OB get-together in Arlington? That's like in 3 days, Tom. So slim at this point. I think, obviously, Anwar is going to be up there. I got to be honest, like, Chad and I have responsibilities. Jason, too. Like, sometimes you got to be chaired and locked up to the things that we have to do because the responsibilities don't go away just because we want to have a good time. Tom, you make it sound so depressing because we'd all just like to go have fun.
Hey, Tom, you got some free tickets for us. We'll make it happen. We'll do our live shows from the stadium or something. But, yeah, otherwise we'll probably be stuck here, stuck at our computers, man.
All right. Well, Jason, get on out of here. Thank you. Hey, real quick. I shouldn't do this.
Oh, no. Uh-oh, my internet's bad. What's going on?
No. So yesterday at the last minute, I just, before the show started, I asked Chad, I was like, hey, did Jason come on the show yesterday? And he said, no. And I said, well, he asked me if you needed some help. And I was like, he might. Did I not do it? What happened?
You said you passed it on to Chad. Then I never heard from Chad. So I was like, I guess things are fine. But yeah.
Yeah, he never passed it on to me.
He did not pass it on to you?
No. So just so you know, it's not that if he had said to me, hey, Jason's good to come on with you at some point, I'd been like, oh, okay, cool. He didn't tell me that.
Yeah,
today.
You know what, dude? You said I just dropped him. Oh, I misinterpreted it. You said I just dropped this on him, meaning that you weren't going to be on the show. I thought you meant I just dropped that you said, hey, you could come on the show. So, okay, that was just a misunderstanding. I almost texted you, Chad, because I was like, I wonder if Chad knows, because I hadn't heard anything from you, but I was like, he's rolling, he's got it good. So I saw.
And I told Chad, I was like, hey, I didn't watch the show, so I don't know what happened.
I did watch some of it, and I was like, well, Chad's just doing his own thing, I guess. So I was like, all right, so my bad. Well, yeah, I didn't. Okay, I'll take the blame on it. He said I dropped this on him. I didn't realize you meant your absence. I thought you meant I just dropped it that hey, you're available. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. It's all right. We got it done.
It's all good. I'm glad I asked now. There was actually, it was just men not communicating clearly. Who could ever believe that would happen?
It's the first time that's ever happened. Guaranteed it'll be the last.
Jason, go enjoy the rest of your day, my man. Appreciate it.
I guess. Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. Good stuff there. Good stuff. That is
he was about to read the transcript of our conversation.
Yeah. Now I get it. Yeah. Now I get why there was some confusion on his part. And yeah, I found out about that.
I was like, you know what? I read that to Chad and it was very ambiguous. Like there wasn't I will do this or you should do this. We were like, cool, you're going to do it. And so I could tell he started to read the message and I was like, I did this today. I didn't do anything wrong other than I should have not assumed anything.
There were two people that probably needed to know about that back and forth, and then they could have sent a link, and one was me and one was Blake, the super producer, and neither of us knew that it had happened. So kind of tough. What are you going to do? It's like I've tried to explain over the years, Ketch, to plenty of women that I've either been dating or friends with or family members, like, I can't read minds. I'm a very simple person, but if you need to tell me, you got to tell me. Like, so I actually know, but that's all right.
What do we have to do before we say goodbye today? Did we ever get the crap bag?
We did not get the crap bag. So you can determine if we need to do that. We definitely need to just circle back around to Hayes City Store. Cause I don't think we ever heard from Ethos on
Did
what
he ever
they
tell
ate.
us?
I don't think Ethos ever told us what they ate, but Ethos did yesterday. He chats in, says he's taking the girl to Hayes City Store. His girl ended up having the frozen margarita, and they loved it. You can do a frozen margarita flight at Hayes City Store if you want to. Daily specials include $6 frozen margaritas. They've got frozen mules. I'm a big fan of the mule. I'm a vodka guy, so I like mules. I've not had their frozen mule. That's a good idea, though. I have had a taste of that bourbon milkshake. Ketch was sitting across the table from me when I had that. I damn near passed out. It was so good. I'm definitely getting that bourbon milkshake the next time I'm at Hayes City Store. The food's awesome. The atmosphere is incredible. This time of year, if it gets a little chilly, it's okay. They've got the flaps they can lower down on the ice house. They've got heaters. If it's on the warm side, they've got misters. They are good. They got great shade with all the beautiful trees. You're going to love it. Make your plans. I'm getting a plan together to head out there in the early part of December. We're going to go out there because Sherry, our legendary friend Sherry that Ketch has now met, one of his favorites, one of our cowboy fan sisters out there. She's never been to Hayes City. We're going to get her to Hayes City in December. Get one of your friends or family members that's never been, or if you've never been, get your damn self out to Hayes City Store. FM 150 in Driftwood. It's going to be worth the trip. I don't care where you live. It's worth the trip every time.
Blake, we probably should announce this coming out, and I didn't see the meal. He needs to let us know. Did we miss it somewhere along the line? Like,
I looked and didn't see it.
Okay. Blake put it in like all caps. Max Johnson commits to North Carolina.
You know, his dad was a famous player, Ketch. I don't know if you knew it. His dad won a Super Bowl. I like kids that like football, like kids that are leaders. That's why we love Max.
I don't know what I think about that for either party.
I agree. I don't know that that's a great – I certainly don't know if it's a great fit for Max, and I don't know if Mac Brown's fan base and Mac Brown are going to get what they think they're getting out of Max.
Well, if I'm Max, I guess I would look at that and say the last two UNC quarterbacks are playing or will play in the NFL. So yeah, Sam Howell, Drake May.
Yeah. So I get it. You get it for him because also that offense is going to be more dynamic than what you were just doing. That doesn't say a lot, but it will be. But can he keep up with it, Ketch? That's the question. Can Max Johnson keep up with a more dynamic offense? Can he go have – here's a comparison. It's a lesser level. Can he go have a Bo Nix-ish story at North Carolina?
No.
That's the question.
No, and my concern is like North Carolina has underperformed probably the last two seasons. certainly this year. I mean, by the end of the year, I think North Carolina was a disappointment. They at one point it looked like they might play in the ACC championship, and then by the end it was like, well, everybody's getting some from North Carolina, and that's with Drake May. I've got questions about Drake May. I don't know that he'd be my guy, and I don't know that Max Johnson makes North Carolina better next year. It feels like North Carolina is running out of steam with Mac Brown in this second go round, but maybe it's North Carolina and there's no football expectations, and Mac can that tells me that Mac's sticking around for another year. And I had wondered whether or not when the season was over, Mac would retire. So
all these years later, you're still shitting on me. Fuck you, Jeff Ketchum.
Pretty much. And we did have this as well via Brett McMurphy. OU announces offensive analyst and former North Texas coach Seth Luttrell promoted to OC, and tight ends coach Joe John Finley, and I covered that guy in recruiting, promoted to offensive co-offensive coordinator. Okay. I think that's I think Jeff Lebby is a horrible human being and shouldn't be a head coach or a coach anywhere at the collegiate level. But I think it's a slight downgrade. So, the thing is.
But Ketch, is it an upgrade in that neither of these guys knew what was going on in Waco?
Yes.
Right? I mean, let's find the good news.
Well, I don't know if this is good news or a super hot take, but OU matters less now to Texas. I mean, Texas is about to be in the SEC, and I think the significance of OU in the Texas and I mean this for Texas in the OU orbit as well. They mean less to each other now. They're going to play each other every season, but boy, and I haven't done this I can't remember the last time where I was like, look ahead to next year and OU's not the biggest thing. I think the state of that rivalry is that, the context between it is that OU has owned the Big 12 for so long that OU's forever been the team you have to climb over. What does the OU rivalry mean to Texas in a world where OU's not at the top of the SEC food chain? I think it's devalued a little bit.
But it's still the biggest rival?
I don't think so. I think A&M is the biggest rival. I think
Wait a minute. Oh, okay. Well, now we're in a whole different discussion here. You're saying that once they get to the SEC, you think a Texas Longhorn fan is going to tell us that their number one rival changes?
Well, I think it has changed in my lifetime. When we were kids, so, when I moved to Austin in 86, A&M started getting the better of Texas.
Right.
When I was in college at Texas, A&M was the bigger rival. And the Texas OU, and Texas was winning a lot of those OU games. They weren't better than OU. They just seemed to keep beating OU. Mm-hmm. And it was like beating A&M and getting ahead of A&M when I was both a kid all the way through when I was in college. I always interpreted A&M as the bigger rival. And then at the turn of the century, OU got Stoops, UT got Mac. Those two started battling for control of the Big 12, and A&M never mattered again. And so it changed in the late 80s, in the 90s, A&M was the number one rival. In the 2000s, it's been all Oklahoma. I think moving forward, I don't know if anybody is going to agree with me. This is my prediction moving forward. I think there's a very good chance that the A&M Texas relationship comes back to the forefront. Just my opinion.
It's interesting. To me, I've always said players, I feel like it's changed for players over time to exactly what you're talking about. Because for a Texas player, as long as they were playing both, it did depend on are you winning the games? Are you losing the games? Is the other team badass or not? But I've contended for years that it's that Texas OU rivalry that will always hold the top spot for a Texas fan. Maybe it will be fluid once we get to the SEC. Because I'd also throw in, Ketch, what if my Aggies don't hold up their end of the bargain? What if my Aggies go into a kind of a funk here at the beginning of Texas's time in the SEC? Could that change it?
Look, we talk about it all the time. There's no proof that these two can coexist successfully at the same time. I guess where I'm coming from is this, and I will just simply say, when I was in my 20s, and as I started orangebloods.com, now I've been doing this a long time, but when I first got Oklahoma, when I was in my 20s, Oklahoma was a game on the schedule that everybody got jacked up for once a year. But then for the rest of the year, it was about Texas and Texas A&M in my 20s. And that there wasn't an obsession about Oklahoma during that time of my life. And all I did was start orangebloods.com. I'd like to think I'm a little bit of an authority on Texas football and the historical side of it. It really changed the day in 2000 when Oklahoma pile drived Texas, and then OU won a national championship. So it changed in 2000. And then it hasn't been that. It's been Texas and OU for 23 years. But as both Texas and OU go into the SEC, they both got to figure out the SEC. It's not about those two playing each other anymore. It's about playing in this mega conference, finding a way to get into the playoff. And we've talked about it with the schedule. They play Michigan. They play Georgia. They play Florida. They play Arkansas. They play A&M. There's no way to get around the fact that whatever Texas and Oklahoma is next year, it's one game. And whereas the winner of that game for the last quarter century has emerged as the favorite in the Big 12 more times than not, that ain't happening next year.
Right. And it's one of the ingredients, one of the few things you could have added to Texas OU to sort of cast a shadow on it is put it in the SEC. The idea of that game as an SEC game is still blowing my mind. It's going to freak me out when we see that in Dallas next year.
I just think the stakes of Texas and OU are significantly lower now, because it's always been, for the last quarter century, an entire generation of fans knows that the outcome of that game typically means the winner should be in the Big 12 championship game. Or
right.
As it was this year, Oklahoma emerges from that game and suddenly they're the favorite. Now, it didn't hold, but that felt like the stakes of that game.
Well, the interesting part,
I just don't think it'll be like that.
Well, it's interesting too. It's almost the opposite argument. I could argue that the game, when they redid the Big 12 and got rid of divisions, it became, you could argue the stakes of that game did change a little bit and it wasn't as critical. But now in the SEC, with all that you've got to deal with those two teams trying to ultimately get to Atlanta, could you argue that it's even more important? Because if you do take the loss there in Dallas, I mean, holy hell, for the rest of the year, I mean, you've put yourself in the situation where you can't lose another game the rest of the year, period.
I think both of those teams have to prove in an SEC schedule that they can win 9 games first. And until they start to either get one of them or both of them can prove that they can do that, I just think it's just a regular old SEC game. It's a rival,
right?
But the stakes are down. They just are, because the winner of that game very easily, no matter who the hell wins it and by what score, it might not matter at all in the greater scheme of things in next year's SEC bubble. And I think it matters more. It might mean more in the sense of the winner of that game may have the edge in making a playoff, right? I mean, it's about getting into the top 12. This year, both teams, I mean, as it currently stands, I don't think OU would get in a 12-team playoff this year. I think they're ranked 13th, But once you take the other conference championships and give them a few of the spots, and it's not like the top 12 in the poll get in. It's not quite that cut and dry. This year, it looks like OU would have been left out. And I wonder if next year, when those two teams play, we'll look back on it and say, one of those two teams ended up being a factor in a playoff discussion. It ends up being the team that was the winner. I don't know if there's going to be room for both.
All right, Ketch, speaking of no room, we had no room for crap bag, but I was going to show you the expanded playoff. Do you want to see it before we get out of here?
Sure.
All right, because it's just what you just said. So I'll lean it right to you. The 12th ranked team is OU right now. So by my math, they would be the one left out right now because Tulane
Exactly
is the team. So right now they're number 22, but these would be your matchups right now. And earlier we were looking at this, Ketch, and Blake, the super producer and Texas fan, said, wow, I kind of like those matchups for Texas. How do you like the idea of Texas hosting Penn State and then playing Michigan in a quarterfinal?
I'm telling you, I can't wait for a freaking 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
I see a lot of opinions, Chad, on Orange Bloods.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people who are like, I hate this. I wish it went back to where only 2 made it.
No,
and I'm like, what? You guys don't like fun?
Yeah, exactly. Here, let's look. As you're looking at this, let me put it this way. This would mean if we were going into the 12 team, the Oregon-Washington game on Friday night, when people say, well, these games wouldn't matter as much, it would be playing for a bye.
Yeah.
It would be playing for a bye versus going into a game where you have to play the first week. Now, would you get to host? Maybe, but that's. Look at the Missouri-Bama game. Bama would be playing to host a playoff game or better, but if they lose it, even if they didn't fall out of the playoff, they might have to go on the road. And how about Texas? Texas would be fighting to stay in a playoff. If they lost to the number 18 team, Oklahoma State, they're probably out. If Oklahoma State beats Texas, they might get in with a win like that. It may creep them into the top 12. Louisville would be playing to get in to the playoff. The teams that have a bye would be playing to keep their bye. Like, Ketch, there's so many different ways that it's interesting to me when I think about it.
Well, and I wonder, in a world where, let's say this was this year, 12, I guess Tulane plays in a championship game this weekend, right?
Correct.
But 11, 10, keep it up there, Blake. 9, like the bottom of that top 12 are not playing games.
Correct. And obviously OU isn't either.
You'd have Texas, Bama. I'm thinking of those two teams specifically where if they lost, how far would they drop? Will the committee look at teams that are having to play and like that have to play that extra game? I bet there's a built-in protection there where they're not going to drop a Texas or a Bama all the way out if they lose. So much of the conversation at the end of in 12 months from now will be about 12, 13, 14, 15, who is in, what needs to happen. But what's really interesting is that on the last weekend of college football, most of those teams won't have games. So the 12 spot may be something that gets decided this week, this most recent.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much 9 through 15 changes after this weekend. It's all about 1 through 8 and what order they get put in. I wonder if next year when we're doing this, the most recent, we had the conversation earlier today, and I know we got to go. It's 3:00, blah, 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 blah. Although ironically, we do have like 500 people watching the show right now. Maybe we just need to go past 3:00 every day. No. We were talking about whether or not these rankings this week matter on Sunday in any way whatsoever, right? Like, does this permeation of the rankings matter? Next year, it'll have to. Whatever they say, the order of the teams are at the back end of that top 12, most of those teams won't be playing games. So this most recent batch of the rankings would be incredibly important because how would Oklahoma get in, right? What's Oklahoma's pathway if they're the last team out? They don't play a game on the last weekend. There's nothing that they can do other than root for the teams that are playing to lose. And I don't know that the committee will punish those teams. Would Alabama get knocked out because they lost to Georgia? Like, would Texas fall all the way out? Like, maybe. But
we do know playing in this weekend will be important for those people that would say, oh, why would you play the championship games? Well, now that's going to become really important. Those G5s are going to get a chance to jump up and, get in. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And a team like Texas that's in that 5 to 8 category, Ketch, they could go from hosting a playoff game to having to go on the road. That's another thing. What if Texas
or a bye, or you're hosting, or you're traveling?
Yeah, exactly. That line. So you could be fighting for a bye, or what if you're fighting to stay at home rather than, going to like Happy Valley in December? Like those are the kind of things.
And Chad, a year from now, they could treat Florida State however they want.
Right. Yeah.
Like Florida State could be 6 or 7, and you could say, we don't think you're as good without your starting quarterback. Now it means leaving them out.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be such a big deal if they were 5 or 6 and they didn't get a bye, and the committee says, we just don't think you're one of the 4 best teams right now.
Yeah, because right now, the stupidity is there's this many things they care about, but they don't have that many spots. Next year, there'll be this many things they care about, and there's a lot more spots than that. So it's going to make more sense.
And they'll say, hey, yes, you're not in the top 4, but you get to host a game.
Right.
It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if Florida State were 5 or 6, whereas this year it's like, you're going to leave them out if they're undefeated? I love 12 teams. I think it's a great idea. I think eventually we'll get to 16. I think we'll go 5 years, and then there will be a big, how come these teams get buys and it's not fair? And maybe all of the champions keep coming from the top 4. And it's like, you got to make everybody play the same number of games. We'll eventually get to 16. Oh, and by the way, it'll make more money, more TV. But I love the idea. I can't wait. I wish it were this year.
I do too. Yeah, it'd be fantastic. We'll get into more of those discussions about this year, the last 4-team pageant that we've got. I'll save those Oklahoma State discussions for tomorrow, but we will dig in a little more on the Cowboys and Ollie Gordon tomorrow, and the one glaring, blinking thing about Oklahoma State that Texas has to take advantage of on Saturday morning. We'll get to all of that. Football with Friends is coming up at 3:30 with Alex Dunlap and the crew. We also have an Outsiders show for you tonight at 9 o'clock. It is a What Are You Drinking Wednesday, and Roy Williams is going to join us on the Outsiders tonight. So good conversation with one of Chance Mock's former teammates and one of y'all's favorites, Roy Williams, coming up tonight. He'll join us about 9:15 in the Outsiders. Thanks to everybody for jumping in the Specs chat today. 500 folks hanging out as we get ready to close the door. We appreciate it. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications. Until high noon tomorrow, we are house divided.